Chapter 440. Crap. System, didn't you say you wanted me to do this quest to expand the restaurant's outdoor seating area because the restaurant's level is too low? Meg was stunned for a moment. He could not help but blurt out, feeling as if he had been played for a fool. Yes. However, although the host has obtained an outdoor seating area, the host does not have the authority to use it because the restaurant's level is too low. If the host wishes to use this renovation, please upgrade the restaurant's level as soon as possible and obtain the renovation authority, the system replied seriously. MMP. Meg rubbed his forehead. He was no longer angry. He took 2 deep breaths to calm himself down. Inwardly, he said, "System, check my balance. Restaurant balance, 471,0021 copper coins," the system quickly replied. "Then I'm only missing the reservation fee from the City Lord's mansion." Meg raised his eyebrows. He was still over 30,000 gold coins away from upgrading the restaurant. However, aside from purchasing the strength points, Meg did not have any large expenditures for the time being. Meanwhile, the system had already asked for 50,000 gold coins to purchase the second strength point. Right now, the most important thing was naturally the strength points. Hence, the matter of increasing his strength was urgent. Hence, he still needed to save this money. System, what are the benefits of upgrading the restaurant? If it's just a few decorations, then I won't upgrade it, Meg asked leisurely as he pulled up a chair and sat by the restaurant's entrance, basking in the sun. In any case, after purchasing the strength points today, the restaurant could be upgraded. The outdoor seating area would also not be a problem. There will be many benefits after the restaurant's upgrade. Aside from the renovation authority, the system will also have access to many other authorities. There will also be an upgrade gift pack waiting for the host. Once lost, it will not come again. Hurry up and upgrade, the system said noisily. Is that so? But I'm not in a hurry at all. I even want to take a nap first. Meg stretched lazily. If the restaurant's upgrade would result in major changes, it would be better to do it at night. It would also be easier to work through the night. As for the restaurant's upgrade, Meg was more concerned about the restaurant's defense. This was the foundation of being able to sleep soundly in this world. No one could be in a state of alert 24 hours a day. Even a level 10 expert could not do so. And if he had to guard against all kinds of dangers every day, he would lose the joy of life. Meg didn't want to live every day in fear. Therefore, his ultimate goal was very simple. One day, he would upgrade the restaurant's defense to level 10. At that time, it wouldn't matter even if he announced his identity to the world. It would be an absolutely safe fortress. Moreover, Meg Alex back then was not at the point where he was the enemy of the entire world. Otherwise, those guys would not have needed to find so many people to take the blame and be buried with him. In the military of the Roth Empire, he was extremely respected, and was even regarded as a legend. Perhaps this was the main reason why that person sitting in the royal palace of Rodu had allowed that incident to take place. Of course, these things were still very far away from Meg. As long as he didn't expose his power and expose his identity, and continued to develop before the people of Rodu came looking for him, he would be able to increase his power and gain more capital at the same time. When the entire world couldn't avoid him, no one would dare to plot against him. This capital was not just a person's power. Meg Alex had already proven one thing: no matter how powerful a person was, even if they could easily slay a dragon, there was a limit to their power, and death was inevitable. He was too independent. He didn't control the military, and didn't make friends with the officials. He was like a lone ranger who only had Irina by his side. Being powerful but unable to control was a dangerous existence in the eyes of those in power. If they couldn't use him, then he would be an unstable factor, and killing him would be the only option. What was laughable was that Meg Alex was the hero of the Roth Empire, but he had fallen at the hands of his own people. As such, Meg didn't plan to walk the path of a lone ranger this time. The simplest and most direct way to increase his overall power was to establish a force, and then nurture his subordinates to become a powerful force. However, Meg didn't plan to do that. Playing with Amy every day and serving customers was a very relaxing life. He didn't want to become a pyramid schemer. Furthermore, It was impossible for a force to become the enemy of the Roth Empire in a short period of time on the Norland continent, even if it was led by a 10th-tier knight or magic caster. Of course, there were many other ways to increase his power. Meg's current train of thought was very simple. He didn't want to nurture his subordinates, and he wanted to bind them. He wanted to bind some powerful forces to him, and the more powerful such forces there were, the more influence he would have, and he would have the capital to negotiate with others. At present, Chaos City was clearly a good choice. It was large enough, and had the power to negotiate with the Roth Empire. More importantly, Meg felt very comfortable in Chaos City, so he was happy to see this city become better. However, Meg wasn't the lord of the Grey Temple, after all. Even if he recovered his full power, he still wouldn't be able to make Chaos City support him with the entire city's power. He knew that very well. Amy's food was a good way to get him into the good graces of Chaos City's management, but it wasn't enough. A mature politician wouldn't make an enemy of an entire empire for a restaurant. Meg's real trump card was the steam engine. It was an epoch-making invention that could usher this world into the age of steam. With the development of the economy, the production of handicrafts in factories could no longer meet the needs of the market. Although the races with magic and endurance had great advantages in production, with the continuous development of trade and the increasing consumption of civilians in a peaceful environment, the entire continent's market was constantly expanding and had great potential. A large number of workshops were set up one after another, and they were in the stage of rapid expansion. An industrial revolution was brewing. However, due to the contradiction between supply and demand, there was no alternative to human and animal power that could effectively increase production efficiency. If the steam engine were to be born at this time, it would definitely be able to quickly usher the Norland continent into the Industrial Revolution. This was also why the City Lord's Castle was supporting the Hyder team. The steam engine, coal, and steel were the three main factors that promoted the Industrial Revolution. The Norland continent had already satisfied the last two. Whoever could control the core technology of the steam engine would have the initiative to usher the world into the age of steam. And now, this thing was installed in Meg's mind. What Meg had to do now was to think of a way to maximize the benefits of the steam engine. It wasn't just about how much money he could sell it for. More importantly, he had to think of a way to stand on the shoulders of giants and gain some control over the industry. Chapter 441. Mag already had 2 detailed plans in his mind, but none of them met his expectations. Regardless of whether he was collaborating with Heidel or going to the City Lord's castle, it would be very difficult for him to secure what he wanted at the negotiation table when there was too much of a disparity in power between the two parties. As expected, dealing with politicians is the most troublesome thing. If I can't see any results, it's basically impossible to convince them to compromise. Meg shook his head with a smile as he looked at the empty space in front of the restaurant. However, the current government of Chaos City was already very interesting, so it wasn't impossible for Meg to make some concessions to them. He didn't want much, all he wanted was a stable life. Making money was just a side benefit. Just as Meg was about to fall asleep, a crisp voice sounded beside his ear. "Mr. Meg, right? I'm from the City Lord's Castle's finance department, and I'm here to settle the fees for booking the restaurant yesterday." "Yes, I did. I didn't think the City Lord's Castle would be so efficient." Meg opened his eyes to find a woman in the City Lord's Castle's blue uniform standing before him with a smile on her face. The woman appeared to be around 21 or 22 years of age, with a petite figure and an oval face. She had a head of black hair that just reached her ears, and appeared to be very capable and efficient. She was looking at Meg with a hint of curiosity in her eyes. "Is this the restaurant owner who ended the meeting in one night?" Fanny looked at Meg, and found that he was younger and more handsome than she had imagined. He was a very charming middle-aged man. The conference between the dragons and demons concluded in a single night, and the news that both sides had successfully reached an agreement and signed an armistice agreement in the morning had already spread throughout the City Lord's castle. It was rumored that the owner of the restaurant where the conference had taken place last night had become the talk of the town. It was said that the restaurant owner had contributed greatly to the conclusion of the conference. It was just that the specific content of the conference was confidential, so no one had heard about it. However, that was enough to cast a veil of mystery over the owner of the restaurant. 300,000 copper coins for booking the entire restaurant for a single night, a mysterious owner, and a key figure in the conference. All of this was enough to make people curious. Is there something on my face? Meg smiled as he looked at Fanny, who was staring at him. Compared to her capable and experienced appearance, this young woman was a little adorable. Ah, no. Fanny also came to her senses, and she hurriedly shook her head as a blush appeared on her face. She looked at Meg with an embarrassed expression, and asked, "Mr. Meg, is it convenient for you to settle the bill now?" "Of course, please come in." Meg nodded with a smile. He opened the door of the restaurant and gestured for Fanny to enter. "Thank you." Fanny nodded slightly as she gave Meg another thumbs up in her heart. Aside from his handsome looks, he was also a gentle and polite person. Fanny's eyes were filled with amazement as she looked around the restaurant. She was wondering why the city lord had chosen such a small restaurant, but she didn't think that aside from the massive transparent crystal at the entrance, the interior of the restaurant was just as lavish. "Please have a seat and drink some water," Meg said with a smile as he walked out of the kitchen and gently placed a cup of water on the table. "Thank you." Fanny sat down and placed the folder in her hand onto the table. She carefully picked up the glass cup with both hands, and her gaze slowly drifted upward until she was at eye level with the cup. She was slightly taken aback by the sight of Meg sitting across from her, and she blinked with incredulity. She suddenly realized that what she was doing was a little inappropriate, and she hurriedly tilted the cup toward her before tucking her hair behind her ear in an apologetic manner. "Sorry, this is my first time seeing a crystal cup, so, it's all right, it's nothing. The first time I saw it, I hugged it to sleep for an entire night." Meg shook his head with a smile. "PFFFT. Fanny couldn't help but burst into laughter as she looked at Meg with gratitude in her eyes. Just a simple sentence had resolved the awkwardness between them. "This is the receipt form, please sign here. I need to take it back with me." Fanny took a sip of water to compose herself before pulling out 2 pieces of paper from the folder and handing them to Meg. At the same time, she handed over a blue pouch with a smile, and said, "Also, here are 300 dragon coins, please check them. I'm sure the city lord's castle won't shortchange me by even a single copper coin." Meg picked up a pen and signed his name on the paper before stowing away the pouch with a smile. The system had already notified him of the amount of money he had received, and he wasn't shortchanged by even a single copper coin. Mr. Meg really is an interesting person. Fanny took the document back. She had already counted the money twice before coming here, so she wasn't worried that it was missing. She glanced at the document, and was a little surprised. The handwriting on the document was elegant and beautiful, even better than her own. "If I don't open a restaurant, there won't be any customers," Meg said with a smile. In this life, perhaps it was because of Amy, but he had become a lot more outgoing. In his past life, aside from a few fair-weather friends, he was very aloof toward everyone else. However, in this life, he was more willing to listen to the conversations of these customers and listen to their interesting conversations and stories. Without the strings of numbers on the internet, he was paying more attention to life, and only then did he discover that life was far more interesting than he had imagined. Mr. Meg, I heard that mammis is very delicious. Can I order a meal now? I came here without breakfast." Fanny put away the document, and looked at Meg with a hint of anticipation and nervousness in her eyes. Before coming here, her colleagues had told her that the owner of Mammis was very rigid and wouldn't cook outside of business hours. However, after meeting Meg today, she felt that he was more gentle and kind than she had imagined, so perhaps he would agree to her request. "My apologies, but the restaurant isn't open right now, so we don't serve food. If you'd like to eat, you can come here during business hours." Meg shook his head with a smile. There was no room for negotiation. "All right, then I'll come again next time." Fanny nodded with a hint of disappointment at the sight of Meg's determined expression. She drank the water in her cup and stood up with the document in her hand. "Then, Mr. Meg, I'll be taking my leave now. By the way, my name is Fanny." "All right, Miss Fanny." Meg stood up and walked Fanny out of the door. After watching her disappear into the distance, he said in his mind, "System, I'd like to purchase a second strength point. The second strength point will cost 50,000 gold coins. Are you sure you wish to purchase it? The system's voice sounded. Yes, purchase. I want to become stronger. Meg nodded with a determined look in his eyes. Ding. 50,000 gold coins have been successfully deducted. The second strength point has been successfully purchased. Do you wish to use this strength point now? The system's voice sounded. All right. No, wait a minute. Ding. The strength point has been successfully activated. What did you say? Chapter 442. What did it feel like to be electrocuted to the point of finishing a dance? If he was given music, Meg felt that he might be able to win the Dance King competition. System, fuck your mother. Standing at the entrance of the restaurant, Meg touched his afro hair, which made a crackling sound. He immediately retracted his hand and felt that his fingers were a little numb. The chef's uniform on his body had a few holes because of the strong electric current. There were also some black holes caused by the electric current. A faint burnt smell filled the restaurant. Host, please do not insult the system. The system's serious voice sounded. Fuck your mother. Fuck your mother. Meg cursed again. He was not prepared to be electrocuted. He did not know how many volts of electric current passed through his body, stimulating all the cells in his body. At that moment, he felt as if he had seen heaven. That kind of refreshing feeling was simply indescribable. Meg took a look at his clothes. Apart from a layer of dust, there was nothing wrong with his body. He was not burnt either. Only then did Meg let out a sigh of relief. After a while, the electric current in his hair calmed down. Meg tried to clench his fist. His muscles contracted, bringing a strong feedback. Compared to before, his strength had increased by a lot. His physical strength increased by 0.5. His strength had reached the standard of a level 1 knight. Moreover, after his physical strength increased, his speed and swordsmanship also had room for improvement. His overall strength should be able to increase by relying on this physical strength. Host, the system again. The system said seriously. My points should be at least 50,000, right? Will I be able to upgrade the restaurant after I reach 50,000 points? Mag asked casually as he locked the door and walked upstairs. The system swallowed back the words that were about to come out of its mouth. After a moment of silence, it changed into a positive tone and said, yes, the host's points have reached 63,000 points. The host has met the requirements to upgrade the restaurant. The host can exchange points and upgrade the restaurant to level 2. Sorry, I don't have that idea now. Meg smiled and refused. You. The system did not know how to respond for a moment. Taking off his tattered clothes and throwing them aside, Meg entered the bathroom and began to seriously wash off the stains on his body, feeling the changes brought about by the increase in his physical strength. Meg's increase in strength was different from ordinary people's cultivation. It was more like an unlocking game. By completing the system's missions, he would unlock his body's strength and thus increase his realm. Then, on the basis of this realm, through practicing swordsmanship without training, one's strength would be raised to the highest level that one could reach in this realm. The improvement of his physical fitness meant that the upper limit of his speed had been lifted. His swordsmanship could also continue to improve. These were the directions that he should focus on in the future. If I train my swordsmanship to the extreme, I should have no problem dealing with a level 3 swordsman, right? Meg muttered to himself as he washed off the grey impurities on his body. At the north gate of Chaos City, a row of grey horse-drawn carriages slowly drove over. The horses pulling the carriages were first-tier magic beasts, unicorns. They were easy to tame and had great endurance, so they were often used for long-distance transportation. Behind these horse-drawn carriages were boxes of goods. From the heavy footsteps of the unicorns and their fatigued expressions, it could be seen that these boxes were very heavy. The coachman driving the carriages also wore fatigued expressions. There were a total of 15 such carriages. On the shaft of the last carriage sat a middle-aged man in a suit of silver armor. He had a large sword in his hand as he looked up at the city walls of Chaos City with a smile on his face. Behind these carriages were 8 other horse-drawn carriages, all of which had the insignia of the Roth Empire's Magus Tower printed on them. The curtain of the carriage at the very front was lifted, and a young man with a head of curly golden hair poked his head out. He looked up at the imposing city walls of Chaos City, and a hint of surprise appeared on his face as he said, "So this is Chaos City? I didn't think that there really would be a city as big as Rodu." The young man appeared to be around 12 or 13 years old. He had fair skin and dark brown eyes. He wore a dark blue Magus robe, and there was a small golden tower insignia on his chest. That was the insignia of the Roth Empire's Magus Tower. That's right. What a big city. I heard that there are all types of different races in Chaos City, and even giant dragons are quite common here. You can't even see something like this in Rodu. Another young magic caster chimed in as he poked his head out to look at the scenery outside. This is a city built by a bunch of rabble. It doesn't even deserve to be mentioned in the same breath as Rodu. Even if it's similar in size, there's no way it can be as prosperous and chaotic as Rodu, another young man said with a disdainful expression. That young man appeared to be around 15 or 16 years old, and was also wearing a dark blue Magus robe. He had a head of striking green hair, which was tied up into a messy ponytail. His skin was a little sallow, and there were a few freckles on his face. He had his chin slightly raised as if he were looking at people through his nostrils. "Hank, my master told me that Chaos City is very safe, and he warned me that I have to abide by the laws of Chaos City. Otherwise, I might not be able to return." "Is that true?" the golden-haired young man asked with a hint of curiosity in his eyes. "We're here to challenge Chaos School as representatives of the Magus Tower, and we have the Roth Empire backing us up. Why would we care about the laws of a tiny Chaos City?" Hank pursed his lips as he looked at the golden-haired young man with a mocking expression, and said, "George, you're quite talented, but you're still a little too cowardly. The magic casters of our Magus Tower have always followed the rules of the Magus Tower, so we don't have to abide by the laws of other places. Even the laws of the Roth Empire have a special exemption for us, so Chaos City is nothing. Do you really think they'd dare to keep us here?" "That's right. The Magus Tower is the most powerful magic caster organization on the Norland continent. We don't have to obey the laws of Chaos City." The young man nodded with an excited expression. "So that's how it is." George nodded with a contemplative expression before asking, "Aside from representing the Magus Tower to challenge Chaos School, we're also here to congratulate Grandmaster Crassus on accepting a new disciple, right? Furthermore, our master wants us to challenge Grandmaster Crassus' new disciple, so we have to take this seriously, right? Crassus is just a little older, that's all. My master said that he can humiliate him with a single hand. As for his new disciple, she's nothing." A disdainful smile appeared on Hank's face as he spun a green wand around his fingertips. Chapter 443. Master, I've already learned the Firestorm Wheels. What new spell are we going to learn today? Amy asked curiously as she looked at Crassus in the magic room. The 2 Firestorm Wheels beneath her feet spun rapidly, and she levitated 40 centimeters into the air. "We're not going to learn a new spell today, but instead, we're going to do a new experiment. I heard that old man Julian taught you a spell called Extreme Frost Ice Flame recently, right? Let's try fusing Extreme Frost Ice Flame and Explosive Fireball together and see what kind of effect it will produce," Crassus said with a smile as he looked at the 2 Firestorm Wheels beneath Amy's feet. "Fuse? How do you fuse ice and fire?" Amy was puzzled. Ice and fire can't be fused under normal circumstances because their attributes are completely opposite. They'll explode upon contact, and they're very powerful. This is why Julian and I are often very destructive in our battles. Crassus nodded with a smile. "But little Amy's situation is a little special. You were the one who released both ice and fire. This situation rarely occurs among magic casters because no one will practice 2 types of magic at the same time. So, I'm thinking that if Amy can fuse the 2 types of magic together, perhaps she can create a new spell that's far more powerful than Extreme Frost Ice Flame and Explosive Fireball." "Really? Then where should we start?" Amy asked excitedly as she looked at Crassus with interest. "Let's start here. Master will keep an eye on things for you. Little Amy, you can do whatever you want," Crassus said with a smile as he took 2 steps back. His tone was very casual, and he fully displayed the qualities of a grandmaster. Okay. Amy nodded, and the expression on her little face suddenly became serious. She slowly raised her 2 little hands, and a ball of icy blue firestorm wheels rose from her left hand. At the same time, a ball of reddish-purple firestorm wheels rose from her right hand. The 2 balls of firestorm wheels burned silently. Fire and firestorm wheels appeared at the same time, and cold and heat descended at the same time, separating Amy from her left and right. Master, I'm going to fuse, Amy said as she slowly raised her 2 small hands. 2 balls of flames flew out from her palms and slowly approached the 2 of them. The cold air and heat waves that were originally isolated from each other began to become somewhat unstable after the ice flames and flames approached each other. They corroded each other and even made sizzling sounds. The fire and ice flames were also trembling slightly, as if they would explode at any moment. However, under Amy's control, they slowly approached each other in an attempt to merge. Come at me, I will protect you. Crassus's eyes were getting brighter and brighter. He was also looking forward to it. This idea came to him on a whim. He wasn't sure if the fusion would be successful, and whether the fusion would increase the power or cancel each other out. Master, I feel like they're going to explode. Will they blow up the magic room? Amy suddenly stopped with a concerned look on her face. Crassus waved his hand nonchalantly, and said, Don't worry, Master is here. Even if the magic room explodes, there won't be any danger. Besides, Arthur has already returned today, so Amy will soon have a brand new magic room, one that is dozens of times more advanced than this one. Boom. A loud boom rang out from the teaching building in the corner of the Magic Academy. The 3-story building trembled, and the old walls fell to the ground. The students and teachers on the 1st and 2nd floors all ran out of their classrooms in a panic. They stood in the open space outside the teaching building and looked at the Magic Academy on the 3rd floor, where steam was rising from the windows with dumbfounded expressions. Teacher, did the building explode? A student asked curiously. I think so. The magic teacher was also dumbfounded. Just now, he felt a strong magical wave coming from upstairs, but he also knew the identity of the person upstairs, so the first thing he did was to evacuate the students to a safe place. As for denouncing someone, that was not something he dared to do. Master Crassus, are you all right? In the steamy magic room, Amy looked at Crassus with a concerned expression. His white hair was standing on end, and his half-length beard was slightly curled in the middle. His face was drenched in water. Amy was completely unscathed. Not even a few drops of water had landed on her. Oh, I'm fine. I just didn't think that the fusion would be so powerful. Crassus chuckled awkwardly. He had wanted to minimize the problem that had arisen during the fusion, but he didn't think that it would explode as soon as it had just begun. Moreover, it was quite powerful, so he was completely caught off guard. A ball of flame appeared in his hand, and the water vapor in the magic room quickly receded as if it had encountered its natural predator. In the blink of an eye, the magic room was dry again, and there wasn't a single trace of water on his body. All right, go back to class. No matter what you hear later, there's no need to run. Just continue with your classes. The teacher looked at the water vapor that had already receded, and shook his head in exasperation. He hurried the students back to class. Master, did the fusion fail this time? But I feel like they really confuse. It's as if there's something stopping them. Amy looked up at Crassus with her brows furrowed. She didn't seem to be able to figure out what was going on. Little Amy, have you already sensed that? Crassus had already planned to ask Amy to give up for now, but his eyes lit up as he smiled, and said, Then continue with your practice. Find that thing during your practice, and then take care of it. A brand new spell has been created by little Amy. Amy nodded with a concerned expression as she turned to Crassus, and said, All right, then I'll continue with my practice. Step back a little, Master. Be careful of the explosion. Ahem, that was just a small accident. You can continue, little Amy. Crassus blushed slightly, but still took a couple of steps back. That morning, a series of explosions erupted, and the entire magic building shook countless times. The students in class downstairs were slowly getting used to this feeling. Young Master Blower, did you rest well last night? In the eastern part of the city, there was a large room in the backyard of the Elven Embassy in Chaos City. Ingwe knocked on the door with a smile. After a while, the door suddenly opened, and a head with green tree sap smeared all over his face poked out. Phew! Ingwe's eyes widened, and he reflexively took a couple of steps back. He raised his right hand, and almost couldn't resist the urge to slap him. Chapter 444. Young Master Blower, what are you doing? Ingwe lowered his hand and looked at Blower, who was vomiting green tree sap all over his face. Only his eyes and teeth were still the same color as before. This guy had been a constant source of headaches for all of his elders ever since he was a child, and Ingwe didn't know if he was asking for trouble by bringing him to Chaos City. I'm doing this because the journey from the Wind Forest to Chaos City was too tiring, so I got up early in the morning to do a facial mask. Good looks require maintenance. Otherwise, they'll only become uglier and uglier, Blower explained in a matter-of-fact manner. Ingwe's brows furrowed. Even young Mistress Sally wasn't as pretentious as he was after coming to Chaos City. However, he didn't say anything about this. After all, even his father couldn't make him change his mind. Instead, he said, seeing as you've already come to Chaos City, it's time for you to meet young Mistress Sally. If you want to become the leader of the Billy family, then marrying young Mistress Sally is your only chance. If young Mistress Sally becomes the new Elven princess, then you could even become the Elven king. But I've never wanted to become the leader of the family. I don't want to become the Elven king, either. Blower shrugged before turning to Ingwe with a smile as he said, besides, do you really think the young mistress of the Brewster family can become the new Elven princess? Even if she does become the Elven princess, the only one who can become the Elven queen is Princess Irina. She's the epitome of beauty and intelligence, the epitome of power and charisma. There's no elf in this world who's more perfect than her, only she can become the Elven queen. But she's no longer the only candidate to become the Elven queen. Mistress Helena is looking for a new candidate, so it's unknown who will become the Elven queen in the end. Young Mistress Sally is the most likely contender, Ingwe said with furrowed brows. Unknown? I've always been curious. 5 years ago, Princess Irina was already a 10th-tier magic caster who was renowned throughout the entire Norland continent. 3 years ago, she returned to the Elven race, and no one aside from the Queen dared to claim that they were a match for her. Do you think that Miss Sally, who is only a 7th-tier mage, can defeat Princess Irina and obtain the approval of the Tree of Life? If that's the case, what's the point of Helena recommending those so-called candidates? A mocking smile appeared on Blower's face. Even though he looked rather comical with his face stained with tree sap, his voice was filled with determination. Ingwe looked at Blower in silence for a long while, and a hint of elation appeared in his eyes. Everyone said that Blower's third young master was unambitious, and that he wouldn't amount to anything. However, Ingwe's words were far more insightful than the vast majority of elves. However, politics was often not as simple as it appeared to be. There weren't many idiots in the major Elven families, and Mistress Helena's influence in the Elven race wasn't limited to her power alone. As the High Priestess, her prestige was close to that of the Queen. Perhaps you're right, but you came to Chaos City to establish a relationship with Miss Sally. Even if you can't make her fall in love with you, you have to at least make her return to the Elven race of her own accord. That way, you'll be able to garner more praise and support from the Brewster family. That's very important to you. Otherwise, you can go back now, Ingwe said. To be honest, I'm also quite curious about Miss Sally, who ran away from home to marry me. Do I really look that frightening? I feel like she's going to regret her decision after seeing my stunning looks. If that happens, I'll be the one worrying about her. Blower stroked his chin with a concerned expression. Ingwe ignored Blower's narcissism with a serious expression, and said, then let's go to that restaurant today. We'll find an excuse to meet her, but don't make it seem too abrupt. Otherwise, Miss Sally could run away again. I can't do that today. I still haven't rested enough. I'm going back to sleep after putting on a face mask. Let's talk tomorrow. Blower shook his head with a yawn before closing the door. It's going to be extremely difficult to make Miss Sally fall in love with him. Ingwe looked at the closed door in silence for a while before shaking his head in a resigned manner. This guy was far too unreliable, but he didn't know what to say about him. After lunch, Meg took Amy to school, and he had only just returned to the restaurant when he heard a knock on the door. "Please come in, Principal Hyder." Mag opened the door and saw Heidel, who was holding a cloth bag under his arm, looking like an old cadre. He smiled and turned to the side. "Mr. Meg, I'm here to disturb you again. I hope you won't get sick of this old man." Hyder made his way into the restaurant with a smile. "I can learn a lot from chatting with Principal Hyder, so of course I won't get sick of him." Meg poured a glass of water for Hyder with a smile. He had a lot of respect for old geezers like him. His mentor was one such person, and even though he didn't have any major accomplishments, his attitude towards scientific research earned him a lot of respect. "I'm here to ask you about the transmission device you mentioned before." Hyder took a sip of water from the glass, then looked at Meg and began to ask him all kinds of questions. Meg answered all of these questions with reservations. The steam engine was a trend, and even though Hyder and the others had been working on it for decades, Meg couldn't just hand it over to them. It was also very important to him. "Mr. Meg, you have a very unique understanding and ideas about machinery. Even this old man is a little embarrassed." Hyder looked at Meg with admiration, then said seriously, "I still sincerely invite you to join our team. You can participate in the research during your free time in the restaurant. We won't force you to do so." "Principal Hyder, I'm sorry, but I have to spend more time with my daughter during my free time in the restaurant, so I don't have much time to participate in your research. However, if I have any ideas, I can tinker with it in the restaurant. Just treat it as something interesting during my free time." Meg declined with a smile. Once he joined their team, it would be hard to avoid a bad reputation if he wanted to go solo in the future. "I see. That's true. Taking care of your child is still very important." Hyder nodded, slightly disappointed. "I'm a little curious, Principal Hyder. Is your research exclusively supported by the City Lord's mansion?" Meg looked at Hyder and asked curiously. Chapter 445. The Buffett Family. Meg looked at Hyder with a surprised expression. He had offended 2 directors of the Aden Chamber of Commerce, and was disgusted by some of the rules of the Aden Chamber of Commerce that discriminated against half-breeds. As such, Meg had done some research on the Aden Chamber of Commerce. As such, he knew a lot about the Buffett family, who had founded the Aden Chamber of Commerce alongside family Morton. The Buffett family owned the most famous bank on the Norland continent. Buffett banks could be found all over the Norland continent, and they even had many branches on the Dragon Island and the Demon Islands. Deposit certificates stamped with the bank's security code could be withdrawn from any of the Buffett bank's branches, thereby eliminating the inconvenience and danger of carrying large amounts of money around with them. They were very popular among long-distance merchants, and had also received the support of all races to ensure the safety of the bank. With the help of countless banks, the Buffett family had built a massive financial empire. No one knew how much money went through the Buffett banks every year, but one thing was for sure: the Buffett family was the most influential business family in Chaos City on the Norland continent. Even family Morton couldn't compare with them. Furthermore, in recent years, the Buffett family's eldest son, Hill Buffett, had taken over the reins of power. He had made a series of bold and decisive reforms, and had expanded current and fixed deposits. At the same time, he had also begun to lend money to the outside world. This had greatly increased the volume of transactions and income of the Buffett banks, and lessened the pressure on the transfer of funds from all over the country. Even Meg was stunned by these forward-looking measures. He didn't think that the Buffett family would also invest in Hyder's design. In that case, Meg felt that the Buffett family wasn't as simple as it appeared to be on the surface. This was a huge family with enough wealth to tempt any ruler, so the roots hidden beneath the bank were most likely not simple. At the very least, this move of investing in the steam engine allowed Meg to see the foresight of the Buffett family. A sharp sense of smell was the basic attribute of a successful businessman. The family Morton is now in control of the Aden Chamber of Commerce. The discrimination laws were basically formed under the family Morton's management. I heard that the Hill Buffett family has decided to participate in the next election after the Buffett family withdrew from the Aden Chamber of Commerce 25 years ago. The Buffett family happens to be interested in steam engines and has a strong financial strength. Perhaps this is a good entry point to pry open the Aden Chamber of Commerce. Meg's eyes gradually brightened. A rough plan was slowly forming in his mind. Back then, when he told Gudnia that he wanted to overthrow the Aden Chamber of Commerce, it might have sounded arrogant to others, but that wasn't the case in Meg's heart. On the Norland continent, it was very common for half-breeds to be discriminated against. Chaos City was already considered a relatively friendly place, but the situation was even more severe in the Roth Empire and the Orc race. Half-breeds were basically enslaved. Amy was a half-elf, and Meg wanted to change the discrimination against half-breeds in this world. He wanted Amy to be able to be treated like a normal person one day. This was something that could change the world. Perhaps he could start by establishing the discrimination against half-breeds in the Aden Chamber of Commerce. Meg hadn't been able to find a way to do this in the past, but now, he seemed to have an idea. That's right. The Buffett family has given us a lot of help, but our research progress has been stagnant for a long time, and I'm quite sorry about that. If we can't produce results within 3 years, the Buffett family will most likely withdraw their investment. If that happens, our research will become even more difficult. Hyder heaved a resigned sigh. I'm sure you'll be able to produce results very soon, Principal Hyder. This is going to be a momentous event that will be recorded in the annals of the Norland continent, and the names of your team and Principal Hyder will be recorded there. Meg looked at Hyder with a smile. I certainly hope so. If our research is successful, Mr. Meg's name will definitely be recorded there as well. A smile appeared on Hyder's face again. I certainly hope so. Meg smiled. After chatting with Hyder for a while longer, Hyder rose to his feet and bade farewell to him. Perhaps I can find an opportunity to get in touch with the Buffett family. Compared to contacting the City Lord's castle directly, the Buffett family is clearly going to give me more say in this project. Meg stood at the entrance of the restaurant and looked on as Hyder left. His gaze then fell on the blacksmith shop, and he thought to himself for a while before a smile appeared on his face. Perhaps I can make Morby a partner. I'll trade a cannon blueprint for a steam engine. That should be a good deal. In the central conference room of the Buffett Bank's headquarters. Our Buffett family has to succeed in the election in 2 months. Even though our family hasn't participated in the presidential election for over 20 years, and we don't usually participate in the management of the Chamber of Commerce, over 80% of the members of the Chamber of Commerce have business dealings with our bank, and many of them have borrowed money from us. As long as we can win the support of over half of them, we'll succeed in this election. Hill Buffett, who was dressed in red, sat at the head of the table and looked at the executives of the bank sitting on both sides of the long table in the conference room. His beautiful face was full of confidence. Miss, from the previous elections, the family Morton has an absolute advantage. The Dodges family and the Marquis family didn't even get a third of the votes in the election. They posed no threat to Geoffrey at all. Geoffrey has great prestige in the Aden Chamber of Commerce. Even though our Buffett Banks has business dealings with many merchants, these transactions are two-way. Our Buffett Banks relies on the excellent merchants of the Aden Chamber of Commerce to develop. We can't use this aspect to coerce them. Therefore, I don't think this election is optimistic. Unless we have conditions that the other merchants can't refuse, the result won't be much different from the Dodges family. The bald middle-aged man sitting at the head of the table on the right side of the hill looked at the hill with a serious expression. I also agree with the head manager. Buffett Banks hasn't participated in the election for the Aden Chamber of Commerce for 25 years. We've focused on the operation and development of the bank, and we rarely participate in the management of the Chamber of Commerce. Some of the new members of the Chamber of Commerce don't even know that Buffett Banks is one of the founders of the Chamber of Commerce. If we don't create momentum in advance, the result might be worse than the Dodges family and the Marquis family. The red-haired middle-aged man sitting at the head of the table on the left side of the hill nodded with a serious expression. Chapter 446. It was a showdown between darkness and light. The surging magic collided fiercely in the air, erupting with terrifying power. When everything fell silent, the darkness and light disappeared. Irina was still standing behind the spring of life, but she had retreated several meters. Her face was slightly pale, and there was blood dripping from the corners of her lips. Her hand was trembling slightly as she held onto her staff, and she was trying very hard not to fall. The green light around her had already disappeared, and the branches of the tree of life had all been withdrawn. The green light around her had dimmed slightly. Borge took a step forward as he looked at Irina, and said, "You're very powerful, but it's a pity that you made the wrong choice." Irina had been defeated. All of the elves looked on with different expressions. Borge wasn't being sarcastic. Irina was indeed very powerful at only 30 years of age. Aside from Helena, none of the elves present felt that they could defeat her. Borge had won, but he had most likely sustained severe injuries as well. "Everything I've done is what I believe to be the right choice." Irina stood up straight as she looked at Borge with narrowed eyes. "But what's in your body?" Borge's pupils contracted slightly as he raised his wand again, pointing it at Irina as he yelled, "Then you can go to hell with your choice. Get out of here, princess." Right at this moment, a fully armored guard suddenly drew his sword and charged toward Borge. He raised his long sword above his head with both hands before bringing it down toward Borge. Borge's heart jolted slightly as he pointed his wand toward Irina. A streak of black light shot forth, striking the oncoming guard in the face. The black metal helmet was instantly shattered, and a deep gash appeared on the guard's glabella. His body was sent flying backward before landing with a resounding thump. Blood flowed from his glabella, staining the tattoo on his face. He slowly turned toward Irina with great difficulty, and said, Princess, get out of here." As soon as his voice trailed off, he died, but his eyes were still wide open. All of the elves looked on in silence. If a slave were to pick up a knife, a hint of horror welled up in their hearts. "You bastard!" Irina yelled hysterically as she looked at the pool of blood. Her lips were trembling slightly, and the dim golden light on her magic caster's staff began to flicker. "This filthy, damned slave." Borge looked at the corpse on the ground with disgust in his eyes as he cracked his neck from side to side. He turned to Irina with a cold smile on his face as he said, "Bastard? Sooner or later, I will kill all those filthy things. I want to see who can save you this time." A hint of fear appeared in all of the elves' eyes as they looked at Borge. He appeared to be quite terrifying in his current state. Elliot and Vincent's eyes met, and both of them were filled with worry. They looked at Helena, who was still calm and silent, as if what happened today had nothing to do with her. Once Irina died, the elf clan would change. Helena was the only one who could stop Borge, but she didn't seem to have any intention of doing so. Therefore, Irina was dead for sure. A sinister smile appeared on Borge's face as he raised his wand, and black light began to shimmer on its tip. Irina's magic caster's staff was also shimmering with faint golden light, but it was unable to gather any energy. "Let me see who dares to kill her right in front of me." Right at this moment, a low voice suddenly sounded in the sky above. A purple-striped griffin swooped down from above, and the trees around it were swept aside by the fierce winds. Wood shavings flew through the air as the massive griffin swooped directly toward Borge. "Alex!" Borge's heart jolted with shock as he waved his wand toward the griffin, and he immediately retreated in an attempt to evade. All of the surrounding elves' expressions changed drastically as they hurriedly scattered in all directions. Borge's reaction wasn't slow, but the griffin was simply too fast. It flapped its wings and snuffed out the black light that had yet to materialize, and a pair of sharp claws that were shimmering with metallic light had already landed on Borge's body. The dozen or so magic barriers that Borge had erected in quick succession were instantly punctured, and the sharp claws punctured Borge's shoulder before hurtling him heavily through the air, where he crashed heavily into a rocky mountain and was imprinted into the stone wall. A few of the elves who had come to their senses hurriedly shielded Borge as they looked on with horrified expressions at the fearsome griffin and the man on its back. All of the elves were in a state of alert and panic, and none of them dared to do anything rash. The griffin circled in the air before landing beside Irina. The man in a black robe and a black and white mask with a heavy sword in his hand jumped down from the griffin's back before wrapping an arm around Irina's waist as he said in a low and seductive voice, "I'm here. So handsome." In the crowd, a certain elven girl acted like a love-struck fool, expressing the feelings of countless elven girls whose eyes were shining. Irina stared blankly at the man who had his arm wrapped around her waist. She didn't know why he had suddenly appeared here. He was clearly completely powerless now, but he still rushed down without any hesitation. He would always be able to come to her side when she needed him the most. In that instant, tears welled up in her eyes. Meg looked at the pale-faced Irina, who was still in a daze, and a hint of sympathy welled up in his heart as he said in a gentle voice, "I'll take you away." Irina came to her senses, and she looked into the pair of clear and gentle eyes beneath the mask, but she shook her head as she said, "I can't go." Meg's brows furrowed in confusion as he asked, "Why?" Irina looked at Meg with a resolute expression as she said, "The Tree of Life needs me, and they also need me. She still has you, but they only have me." Right at this moment, the Tree of Life, which had been silent for a while, suddenly burst forth with a dazzling green light. Then, like an inverted green bowl, it covered the entire cave. Within that green light, there seemed to be a black light struggling to flicker. "Princess!" Alice rushed out of the cave and rushed over in a panic when she saw the pale-faced Irina. Irina looked back at the direction of the cave and the charging Alice. She opened her arms and hugged Meg before whispering in his ear, "Take Beansprout and leave. I'll be fine." "All right." Meg nodded slightly before grabbing onto Alice's wrist. He then watched as Irina walked into the light barrier. "Princess! Let go of me. I have to stay with the princess." "Princess!" Alice struggled and tried to pounce on Irina, but her wrist was tightly grasped by Meg, and tears flowed uncontrollably from her eyes. Irina walked into the light barrier and entered the cave. The light barrier then shrank, sealing the entrance of the cave. Meg withdrew his gaze and cast a cold glance at the wary elves. His gaze lingered on Helena for a split second before he carried the still struggling Alice onto the griffin's back. "If anything happens to her, I'll bathe the entire elven race in blood." Meg's thunderous voice rang out beside the ears of all of the elves. All of the elves averted their gazes, and Borge, who had just been dragged down from the wall, took a couple of steps back in horror before hiding behind a pale-faced elf. Chapter 447. "Master, all of the gold coins have been transported here from Rodu, but there's a lot of them. Where should we store them? All of the magic items you requested have been purchased, and the Magus Tower's magic room has also been dismantled. All of the useful items have been transported here." Outside the magic room, Arthur turned to Crassus with a respectful expression. "The gold coins can be stored on the first floor. I asked Novan for the space on the first floor to store the gold coins a few days ago. All of the magic items can be stored in another magic room, and I'll be able to set up a new magic room for little Amy in a couple of days." Crassus smiled with anticipation in his eyes. "All right." Arthur nodded. He hesitated momentarily before saying, "Master, the people from the Magus Tower have also arrived. They should be at the entrance of Chaos School right now. Aside from challenging Chaos School, they're also here to pay you a visit. Do you want to see them today?" "No. I still have to teach little Amy magic. Besides, I'm sure these guys are up to no good. If they want to challenge Amy, then let them challenge Chaos School first. Amy will represent Chaos School in the competition." Crassus shook his head. A gratified smile appeared on his face as he looked at Amy, who was trying her best to fuse two types of magic together. "All right, I'll pass on your message." Arthur nodded respectfully before departing. "Those old geezers came all the way here to deliver their disciples to me. It would be a shame if I didn't give them a good slap or two," Crassus murmured to himself before entering the magic room. "Principal, do you think we should accept this challenge or not?" In the principal's office, the slightly chubby head of students turned to Novan, who was flipping through a sheepskin tome. "Why not?" Novan asked without even raising his head. "Principal, the Magus Tower and the Advanced Imperial Academy teamed up to challenge Chaos School 2 years ago, and defeated many of our students in the competition. That was a huge blow to Chaos School's reputation, and it also put some pressure on our students. Those Magus towers must have come prepared. If something like that happens again, it won't be good for Chaos School. The head of students was a little hesitant. If you refuse to fight because you are afraid of losing, then you will never become a powerful Magus. Have you forgotten this principle, Glinton? Novan closed the magic book in his hands and put it down. He looked at the dean, and calmly said, Chaos School's reputation is not about being invincible. What I value more is being able to stand up again after a defeat, and then defeat your opponent again. As for the pressure and shadow, if the students are defeated because of a single failure, it means that our education is a failure. We should be the ones reflecting instead of thinking about how to prevent the students from coming into contact with combat. Yes, it's my fault. Grinton lowered his head in shame. We've accepted the challenge, regardless of whether it's from the Magus Tower or the Advanced Imperial Academy. I want to let the students know that outside of the Chaos Academy, there are people of the same age who are more outstanding than them. They have a higher starting point. If they want to stand at the same height as them in the future, then they have to work harder and not be frogs at the bottom of a well, Novan said with a smile. All right. Grinton nodded. The challenge will be held tomorrow. All of the students and teachers will stop classes for a day to observe. This will give the students a better understanding of magic, and the teachers can see if there are any new developments in the Advanced Imperial Academy. That's all good news, Novan continued. All right, I'll make the arrangements right away. Grinton nodded before quickly departing. At the gate of Chaos School, Grinton looked at Abbott and the Roth Empire official, and said, Friends from Rodu, I am the head of Chaos School, Grinton. Chaos School has accepted the letter of challenge from the Magus Tower and the Advanced Imperial Academy. The challenge will be held tomorrow, and the specific time will be sent to your residences tonight. I hope this will be a match that will benefit both sides. Abbott nodded at Grinton, and said, All right, I think this will be a match that will benefit both sides. We've come from afar. Aren't you going to invite us into your Chaos School? Is this how your Chaos School treats its guests? Hank glowered at Grinton. Grinton narrowed his eyes at Hank, and said in an unhurried manner, Chaos School is a place for students to attend classes, not a restaurant or hotel. The students are currently in the middle of a class, so outsiders are not allowed to enter. Please only enter tomorrow after receiving an invitation from Chaos School. He had been the head of Chaos School for over 20 years, and had seen all kinds of troublesome students. If this green-haired guy were to fall into his hands, he would definitely shave him bald to prevent him from ruining the school's image. Hank felt a chill run down his spine, and reflexively recoiled. He looked at the bald head of Grinton with a hint of wariness in his eyes. We respect the rules of Chaos School, but aside from challenging Chaos School, we're also here to congratulate Master Crassus on his acceptance of a disciple on behalf of the Magus Tower. I've heard that he's currently in Chaos School. Would it be possible for us to visit the school and meet Master Crassus? Abbott asked. Arthur emerged from the school, and turned to Abbott as he said, Master Crassus said that he doesn't have time to meet you. Both Master Crassus and young Mistress Amy will be present for the match tomorrow, so you can congratulate them then. I wonder if that little brat has the guts to accept the challenge? Hank asked with a hint of provocation in his eyes. Arthur turned to Hank, and replied, Master Crassus has said that young Mistress Amy will be representing Chaos School in the match tomorrow. Very good. I'm sure I'll be able to leave her with a good impression. A cold smile appeared on Hank's face. After school in the afternoon, Crassus turned to Amy with a smile, and said, Little Amy, some little brats will be coming to challenge Chaos School tomorrow morning. However, their main target is most likely to be you. They want to embarrass me, so I want you to represent Chaos School in the match. Do you agree? Beat up bad guys. If anyone wants to embarrass Master Crassus, then Amy will beat them up. Amy clenched her little fists and nodded with a serious expression. Crassus's smile widened as he patted Amy's head, and nodded as he said, Very good. Let's go back now. Julian should be done with the final steps of the wand, so we'll be able to use it tomorrow. Yay. A wand that can shrink and shrink at will definitely be super awesome. Amy's eyes immediately lit up with elation. Chapter 448. For tomorrow's match, We don't have to worry about the Advanced Imperial Academy. Our Magus Tower has to secure victory against the Chaos School Magic Academy. That's the promise I made during the morale-boosting ceremony. However, you have to remember that the students of the Chaos School are all of different levels of power, so don't hurt them with malicious intent. Otherwise, it'll negatively impact the reputation of our Magus Tower. In the conference room of the Roth Empire's embassy in Chaos City, Abbott looked at the dozen or so young magic casters present with a serious expression. "Auntie, I can destroy all of those Chaos School kids who can't even hold their wands properly, so there's no need to worry. Besides, battles are dangerous to begin with. Do we have to go easy on them?" Hank asked with a nonchalant expression. "Yeah, if I cast a spell and I'm worried that they won't be able to handle it, should I cast it or not?" George asked, puzzled. "That's right." All of the other young magic casters also wore nonchalant expressions, clearly not taking Chaos School seriously. Unleash your full power during the battle, but don't hurt them with malicious intent until the outcome of the battle is clear. Abbott nodded with a serious expression as he said, "Even though all of you are among the most powerful magic casters of your generation in the Magus Tower, don't underestimate Chaos School. In the past, Chaos School has always sent out some powerful magic casters, and there have been 5 matches in which Chaos School emerged victorious. Not underestimating your opponents is a quality that all magic casters should have." "Yes." All of the young magic casters replied earnestly at the sight of Abbott's serious expression. Hank merely gave a lazy response, clearly not taking Abbott's words to heart. He was toying with the green wand in his hand with a bored expression. As a 4th-tier magic caster, he was more than capable of crushing all of the Chaos School students in this cohort. This was something that his master had told him prior to coming here. Abbott nodded at everyone, and said, "You've all been traveling for half a month, so you must all be exhausted. Go and get some rest. We still have a battle tomorrow, so you can't go out tonight." "Master Crassus, is that wand really purple?" Amy asked as she followed beside Crassus. "Of course it's true. You'll see it in a while. Why would Master lie to you?" Crassus nodded helplessly. He had been saying the same thing along the way. The little one was too curious. Fortunately, they had arrived at Julian's magic potion shop. "Hello, Your Highness Amy," Charcoal greeted Amy respectfully. "Hi, Amy," Green Bin also greeted her. "Hello, Charcoal, Green Pea." Amy raised her head and waved at the 2 birds. She excitedly walked into the magic potion shop and shouted, "Master Julian, I'm here for the wand. Have you really done it? Little Amy, have you finished school?" 1111 was holding a transparent glass vial with a long neck, within which green and red magic potions were slowly fusing. She looked at Amy with a smile. "Yes, big sister 1111, I'm here for the wand. Where's Master Julian?" Amy nodded as she turned to 1111 with an expectant look in her eyes. "The wand that Amy is in such a hurry, of course it's done. Take a look and see if you like it." Before 1111 had a chance to say anything, Julian's coarse voice had already sounded from inside the room. He slowly walked out with a long black box in his hand. Crassus made his way into the room, and pursed his lips at the sight of the box in Julian's hand. "You're still trying to be mysterious, old man. Hurry up and take it out. Master Crassus." 1111 extended a respectful salute toward Crassus. She also looked at the box in Julian's hand with a curious look on her face. A wand that had been crafted by 3 magic casters was really something to look forward to. "Can I open it for you?" Amy's eyes had completely lit up at the sight of the box in Julian's hand, and she turned to Julian with an expectant look in her eyes. "Of course." Julian handed the black box over to Amy. Amy carefully accepted the box before placing it down on a nearby chair. She blew on the box before slowly removing the lid with an expectant look on her face. A burst of purple light erupted from within the box before illuminating the ceiling. This was the figure of a half-elf little girl. It was none other than the image that Amy's had printed on her Ruggiamo bag. Faint purple light was shimmering within the box, and a blackish-purple wand that was around 30 centimeters in length was lying at the center of the box. It was slowly shrinking from bottom to top, and there was a thin section at the center. Its surface was as smooth as jade, and its sleek and streamlined shape gave it a luxurious appearance. There was a dazzling purplish golden crystal embedded at the end of the handle. There was a hint of gold within the purple, and it resembled a deep eye. The beam of light that had been projected onto the ceiling was coming from that eye. Beneath the purplish golden eye was a slightly smaller crystal embedded. The surface of the crystal had been cut into many sections, and it was also very dazzling, as if it were a purple diamond. Wow! Amy's mouth gaped open with elation as she stared at the wand in the box. Her bright blue eyes were sparkling, and only after a while did she raise her head to look at Julian with incredulity in her eyes as she asked, Is this really for me? Of course, this is something that we made especially for you, Amy. A smile appeared on Julian's face. Even though he had expended a lot of time and effort to make this wand, he felt like it was all worth it at the sight of Amy's elated expression. What a beautiful wand! Was it made from a purplish-black magic crystal? It's said to be the most compatible wand material for magic, and there are no more than 3 of them on the entire continent. Coupled with the eye of the purplish-golden flame bird. This wand is simply incredible. 1111 couldn't help but exclaim in amazement. Little Amy, pick up the wand and recite the incantation that I taught you today. That's the correct way to use this wand, Crassus said with a smile. All right, I'll give it a try. Amy carefully pulled the wand out of the box. The wand was around as thick as a thumb, and it felt warm and cool to the touch. It was very sturdy, but it wasn't heavy in the slightest, and she could wield it with ease. The light projected from the purplish-golden flame bird's eye receded as soon as Amy picked up the wand, and the purplish-golden light receded into the eye, as if there were electric currents converging at the center of the eye. In my name, I unseal this wand. Amy closed her eyes and recited the incantation in her heart. Dazzling purplish-golden light erupted from the purplish-golden flame bird's eye, almost enshrouding Amy within. Chapter 449. The purple wand was around 2 meters tall, and it was more than twice as tall as Amy. There was a fist-sized purple crystal ball at the tip of the wand, and purplish-golden lines intertwined with one another to protect the purple crystal ball. A series of mysterious runes were engraved on the wand, and purple light swirled within the crystal, illuminating the dimly lit magic potion shop. Amy held the wand tightly in her hands as she looked up at the beautiful purple crystal with an adorable expression. Her purple magician robes were just right for her. Her tiny body was holding a tall wand, and there was an adorable contrast between the two. It can even transform into another form. 1111's mouth gaped open, and she was momentarily at a loss for words. As a 7th-tier magic caster, she knew a lot about magic, but she had never seen a magic caster's wand that could transform into a wand that was taller than a grown man. Furthermore, the materials used to construct this wand were also very precious. The wand was constructed from purple sand gold, and was extremely hard. Normally, only high-tier knights would use this material to customize their weapons. Furthermore, purple sand gold was simply too precious. As for the purple crystal at the tip of the wand, if she wasn't mistaken, it was most likely the legendary Oracle Stone. The Oracle Stone contained the secrets of the Norland continent's magic. It was said that it had fallen into Julian's hands several decades ago, and there were rumors that the Oracle Stone could predict the future. Even though it had never been proven, its powerful ability to randomly amplify the effects of magic was something that magic casters had always viewed as a holy relic. There had been several large-scale battles over the Prophecy Stone on the Norland continent, but who would have thought that it would become a part of Amy's wand? It was clear to see just how important Amy was to Julian. As expected, the wand is the most perfect form. This height will allow little Amy to use it until she grows up. Crassus stroked his beard with a pleased expression. His beard had grown quite a bit during the time that he hadn't been tortured by Amy. Amy raised her wand and waved it in front of her. The long wand let out a soft whoosh, and a gust of wind was swept up. The power imbued within her tiny body was not to be underestimated. Amazing, they're both beautiful shades of purple. Amy likes both colors so much. Master Crassus, Master Urian, you two are so awesome. I really love this wand. Amy looked up at the two of them with elation as she waved the wand around in her hands, unable to bear the sight of it. I'm glad that you like it, little Amy. I heard that you're going to be sparring with those brats from the Magus Tower tomorrow. Show them the power of your extreme frost ice flames with your wand, Julian said with a smile on his old-fashioned face. That's not right. I should use my magic staff to knock a big bump on their heads and show them what melee magic is. Krasu chuckled, but there was a hint of hostility in his eyes as he looked at Urian. Little Amy has only been learning melee magic for a month. If she listens to you and uses melee magic, she'll most likely be defeated before she even gets close to them. I won't allow little Amy to take such a risk. Julian glowered at Crassus as the temperature around him abruptly plummeted. Seeing as I'm telling little Amy to do this, I naturally have absolute confidence in her abilities. There's no way those brats will be able to touch little Amy. Melee magic is invincible among people of the same rank, Crassus countered as the temperature around him rose to oppose Julian's frosty aura. Invincible among people of the same rank? Why don't you tell me, in these 100 years, have you ever defeated me once? What do you mean invincible among people of the same rank? Julian asked with a disdainful expression. Why don't you stand still and let me hit you with my wand? You've always been the one running away in every battle. Crassus raised an eyebrow with a displeased expression. The two of them clashed with one another as their auras climbed steadily, looking as if they were going to fight at the slightest provocation. All right, masters, I'll be using both types of magic tomorrow, so please stop arguing. I'm hungry, so I'm going home to eat. Amy stood between the two of them with her wand in hand, and spoke with a serious expression. It was quite clear that her last sentence was the most important one. Julian and Crassus exchanged an indignant glance, but they both withdrew their auras as they looked at Amy, and the atmosphere in the magic potion shop returned to normal. Little Amy, in order to make it easier for you to carry this wand around, I've also custom-made a small version for you. You can chant the spell to shrink the wand, and it'll shrink to its smallest form. That way, you'll be able to carry it in the pocket of your magician robe. Julian turned to Amy with a smile. Really? Amy's eyes lit up upon hearing this, and she immediately chanted the spell twice. Her 2-meter-tall wand shrank back to its normal size before shrinking again to become a tiny wand that was only around 10 centimeters in length. Even in Amy's tiny hands, it still appeared very small and delicate. That's awesome, Master Julian. Now I'll be able to carry my wand with me at all times. Amy looked at the small wand in her hands with elation before placing it into the pocket of her magician robe with a smile, and said, "Thank you for the wand, masters, I really like it. All right, I'm going home to eat now. I have to show my wand to father." "Go ahead." Julian nodded with a smile. "I'm also going to eat now. I'm in a good mood today, so I'll get a braised chicken and rice," Crassus said in a slow voice as he followed Amy out the door. Amy ran out the door and knocked on the door of the restaurant. As soon as she entered, she rushed toward Meg, who was in the kitchen, with elation in her eyes, and yelled, "Father, Master Julian and Master Crassus gave me a super awesome wand. Do you want to see it?" "Of course I'd like to see it if Amy wants to." Meg came out of the kitchen with a plate of spicy grilled fish in his hands. He was very curious about the wand that Crassus and the others had made for Amy. Sally and Yarbemia also turned toward him with curiosity in their eyes. During this period of time, Amy had been constantly talking about the wand, so they were also very curious about what the final product would look like. "Look, this is my wand." Amy pulled her little hand out of her pocket and flipped over her palm to reveal a wand that was around 10 centimeters in length. "It's that short." Meg was a little surprised to see the wand in Amy's hand. "It can become longer." Amy shook her head as she chanted an incantation in her heart. She then yelled, "Become bigger." Purple light flashed from the wand, and it instantly expanded to around 30 centimeters in length before landing in Amy's hand. Meg, MIA, and Sally were all surprised to see this. "It can become even bigger." Amy was clearly very pleased with everyone's reaction, and she yelled again with elation, "Become bigger." A 2-meter-long wand appeared in Amy's hand. Chapter 450. This was also the first time that Meg had seen a wand that could change its size at will. He didn't think that Crassus and Julian would really be able to create a wand that could change its size at will in order to allow Amy to use a wand and a staff at the same time. What an amazing wand, and, it's so beautiful, Yarbemia murmured to herself as she looked at the wand in Amy's hand. This is probably the best wand on the entire Norland continent, right? Regardless of whether it's the materials used to construct the wand or the runes left on it by the three great magic casters, this wand is destined to be one of the best wands in the world. Sally was also in awe of the wand. As a 7th-tier magic caster, she was naturally well aware of the benefits that a high-quality wand could bring to a magic caster. Her wand had been given to her by her father, and it had been passed down from a legendary elven magic caster, so it could enhance one's magic by 10%. This 10% enhancement was not to be underestimated. In a battle against a magic caster of the same tier, this 10% enhancement was already enough to tip the scales of victory. Furthermore, as her spiritual power became more powerful, there was still room for improvement. This type of enhancement that came from outside of one's own power was very significant for a magic caster. She had read many legends about the prophecy stone back when she was in the elven race. The prophecies had never been verified, but the ability to randomly increase the power of one's magic was definitely real. However, the randomness was very strong, and even the user had no control over it. Among the past owners of the wand, there had even been people who had used the prophecy stone to unleash spells that were 10 times more powerful than normal. This legendary magic stone was now embedded into Amy's wand, and it was further proof that the prophecy stone was indeed in Julian's possession. Amy shrank her wand again, held it in her hand as she turned to Meg with a curious expression, and asked, "Father, what's the Rui Jingu staff?" "That's also a very legendary wand," Meg replied with a wry smile. He had blurted things out, so it wasn't very easy to explain. "My wand doesn't have a name yet. It can shrink and shrink at will. Can I call it the Rui Jingu staff?" Amy's eyes lit up as she turned to Meg. This name is pretty good." Mag nodded with a smile. Amy's mind worked very quickly, and a mischievous thought suddenly welled up in his mind as he chuckled. Seeing as the wand already has a name, shouldn't the wand also have a nice password when it transforms? Back then, the blah 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 Xiao Morxian transformation had resounded through the streets and alleys. Meg still had a deep impression of her. Looking at Amy's adorable expression as she hugged her large magic staff, Meg was looking forward to hearing some interesting commands from her. Password. Amy thought to herself for a moment before looking at the wand in her hand with a serious expression. War, wishful wand, transform. Purple light flashed, and the short stick transformed into a beautiful and intricate wand. PFFF at the side, Yarbemia burst into laughter. Sally couldn't hide her smile either. That's pretty good. Mag nodded with a smile. Perhaps the sob was the essence of the entire phrase. It was a blatant act of cuteness. However, he hoped that when she grew up, she would still be able to face the phrase he had set. Meow tilde ugly duckling circled around Amy as it looked up at the wand in her hand with curiosity in its eyes. Amy put away her wand and picked up ugly duckling as she turned to Meg, and said, "By the way, Father, Master Crassus said that I'm going to beat up some bad people tomorrow. They seem to be bad people from the Magus Tower, and Master wants me to defeat them all." Magus Tower? Meg raised an eyebrow upon hearing this. He didn't think that he would see that word again so soon. Back when Meg Alex had been ambushed, the Magus Tower had contributed the most. Aside from a few demons who had been used as scapegoats, the rest of the attackers had all been magic casters from the Magus Tower. The elven magic casters had only looked on from the sidelines. Of course, Meg didn't think that the elven race had any good intentions toward him. It was just that many great magic casters and 10th-tier demons had gathered at the time, so there was no need for them to take care of him. Even though only a small group of people in the Magus Tower knew about what had happened back then, if news about Amy were to spread back to the Magus Tower, it would most likely attract some attention. However, 3 years ago, Amy had still been a little girl who couldn't speak. She was completely different from how she was now. Furthermore, before leaving Rodu 3 years ago, Meg Alex had faked a suicide, and at the same time, he had almost completely changed his appearance. Just from his appearance alone, no one would be able to recognize that he was Meg Alex. Meg knew that Meg Alex's life was on the minds of many people. Regardless of whether it was the second prince, who had the backing of the Magus Tower, or the first prince, who was becoming more and more influential in the military, neither of them would allow a variable like Meg Alex to appear again. At the very least, the current situation was 50-50. However, if Meg Alex were to appear again, the balance of power in this battle for the throne would change drastically. Regardless of whether it was the first prince or the second prince, neither of them were confident that Meg Alex would stand on their side. This was also the reason why that incident had occurred in Rodu 3 years ago. This was a rare tacit understanding between opponents. People always think that they're smart. In reality, Meg Alex left the military to travel the continent back then precisely because he didn't want to participate in this battle for the throne. He didn't like the warmongering first prince or the hypocritical second prince, so he didn't support them, nor did he oppose them. He only cared about living a comfortable life, and didn't care who became the king. However, there are some idiots who always like to add feet to a snake. If there's a chance in the future, both of them can forget about the throne. Meg thought to himself. He then turned to Amy with a smile, and asked, "Did Teacher Crassus say how many people Amy is going to beat up?" "No." Amy shook her head. She was a little perplexed as she asked, "Aren't we going to beat up as many people as we can?" That's a good idea." Meg nodded with a smile. This little girl was beginning to show her dominance. However, seeing as Crassus was sending Amy into battle, he should be very confident in her abilities. Amy was able to defeat a third-tier magic caster with her fireball magic in the past, so she was already quite powerful among novice magic casters. It shouldn't be a problem for her to deal with some little guys from the Magus Tower. Chapter 451. After Meg and the others had finished their dinner, it was time for business. Amy sat behind the counter with a blueberry ice cream in her hands, and slowly licked it. Ugly Duckling was lying on her lap, looking up at the ice cream in Amy's hands and licking its lips with its little tongue. The introduction of ice cream had enriched the desserts available to the customers. Not only were they popular with children, but they were also very popular with adults. In particular, after eating the spicy grilled fish, the spicy sensation was instantly alleviated, and the feeling of jumping into an icy spring from a pool of lava was simply too exhilarating. "I want an ice cream, blueberry flavored." "I'll get that first, then a medium spicy grilled fish, medium spicy grilled fish. After the grilled fish, I'll get a chocolate flavored ice cream." Vivian was still wearing a set of loose men's clothing as she sat down with Yarbemia. This was a combination that she had come up with. The sweet and sour blueberry ice cream would be the appetizer, followed by the sweet chocolate ice cream after the spicy grilled fish. It was simply perfect. "All right, please wait a moment." Yarbemia nodded with a smile before making her way to the next customer. "TSK, TSK. A man who can cook such delicious food really is irresistible to women. Thank God I'm not an ordinary woman." Vivian looked at the little girl who was staring at Meg in the kitchen, and murmured to herself as she raised an eyebrow. Her gaze then fell on Gloria, who was sitting in the corner, and her eyes lit up. Since when did such a beauty appear in Chaos City? Vivian was a little surprised to see this. This little girl's looks, figure, and disposition were all exceptional, and she was a complete beauty. As someone who was bored enough to pay attention to the Chaos City Beauty Rankings board all year round, Vivian was very sensitive to new beauties in Chaos City. This little girl's looks and disposition were at least in the top 5, but she wasn't very famous. However, even though this little girl was sitting with her back straight, she was constantly sneaking glances toward the kitchen. However, she would quickly withdraw her gaze, and repeat the same actions over and over again. Vivian couldn't help but find this rather amusing. Looks like it's not just ordinary women. Even such a beauty can't escape the temptation of delicious food. However, this boss seems to be quite upright. He shouldn't casually provoke customers, right? If he dares to mess around, no matter how delicious the food is, I will never let him off, Vivian thought to herself as she looked at Meg, who was busy in the kitchen. The suede has almost no customers. Many of the fabrics stored in the warehouse have become moldy and damaged due to poor storage. The service attitude of the staff is also somewhat bad. Now we can't even break even. How can we achieve a profit in a month and achieve results that grandfather approves? Gloria thought to herself worriedly. She frowned and leaned against the chair behind her. She sighed and said to herself, even though I didn't do anything for the whole day, I still feel so tired. Your sweet tofu pudding and Yangju fried rice. Yarbemia placed a tray of food in front of Gloria. He looked at her with a smile and said, the restaurant just released a new ice cream today. Perhaps you should give it a try. Its sweet and refreshing flavor can dispel all of your worries and worries. Gloria initially wanted to refuse, but her gaze fell on Amy, who was happily munching on her ice cream. She hesitated momentarily before turning to Yarbemia, and asked, is that ice cream? That's right. Amy is holding a blueberry ice cream. There are a total of 4 flavors to choose from, so you can choose according to your preferences. Yarbemia nodded with a smile. He then opened the menu for Gloria and flipped to the ice cream page. Blueberry, chocolate, matcha, vanilla. Could it be that it's made from a fragrant herb? Gloria's curiosity was piqued. She closed the menu and turned to Yarbemia with a smile, and said, please give me a vanilla ice cream, I want to eat it right now. Sure, please wait a moment. Yarbemia nodded with a smile. He then quickly walked into the kitchen, and soon returned with a light yellow vanilla ice cream. He handed it to Gloria, and said, your vanilla ice cream. Thank you. Gloria accepted the ice cream and nodded slightly. Her eyes lit up as she looked at the vanilla ice cream in her hand. There was a light brown cone wrapped in a thin paper shell, and it appeared to have been baked out of flour. There were 2 light yellow snowballs on top of the cone, one on top of the other on top of the other. It was still autumn, but these 2 snowballs looked as if they had been kneaded from real snow. Furthermore, they were exceptionally smooth. The faint fragrance of vanilla mixed with the sweet aroma of milk wafted toward her, giving her a refreshing feeling. Are we going to lick it? Gloria looked at Amy, who was licking the ice cream with relish. She hesitated momentarily before also licking the snowballs with the tip of her pink tongue. The ice and snow slowly melted on the tip of her tongue, and the fragrance of grass and milk spread through her mouth. The cool sensation made her tongue feel as if it had lost all sensation in that instant. Gloria only felt a special sense of pleasure emanate from the tip of her tongue, and her eyes were already narrowing involuntarily as a sweet sensation spread through the air. In her daze, she felt as if she could see a figure in a pristine white chef's suit slowly making his way toward her. There was a warm smile on his handsome face, and he was looking at her with an affectionate gaze. He raised a hand and gently caressed her chin. She felt as if an electric current were flowing from his hand, and she was completely entranced. Phew! Only after a long while did Gloria slowly open her eyes. She looked at the ice cream in front of her, and then at the busy figure in the kitchen, and all of the frustration in her heart seemed to have been completely dispelled in an instant. Perhaps all of her troubles weren't that difficult. At the very least, she was able to enjoy the delicious food here and watch Mag cook in the kitchen, and her heart was at peace. You can do it, Gloria. How can you give up on the promise you made and the words you said just because of a little difficulty? A smile appeared on Gloria's face, and she gently licked another mouthful of ice cream. She closed her eyes and watched as he approached her. Even though this was just a little bit of her imagination, she was still very satisfied. The 2 snowballs were quickly devoured by her. Her teeth gently cracked open the eggshell, and it was crunchy and delicious. It hadn't softened in the slightest due to the melting of the ice cream, and the aroma of the egg was intermingled with the aroma of milk. Chapter 452. As soon as this idea appeared in Gloria's mind, she couldn't get it out of her head. She had spent the entire day thinking about how to turn Swade's losses into profits. Even Mars, who had been by the president's side for over 20 years, said that he would need some time to do some research before coming up with a solution. There were very few ready-made clothes on the market at the moment. Customers usually had to buy fabric first, and then go to a tailor for customization. That way, the clothes would fit better, but it would also take a longer time to complete the final product. Now, Gloria had an idea. Could they choose a style of clothing first, then mass-produce clothes of different sizes, and sell them in the shops. Customers could choose to try them on and buy clothes that fit their own size, thereby eliminating the need to take measurements and customize the clothes. Not only would that save customers time, but it would also save the shop's manpower and resources. Even though Gloria didn't have much contact with other people in the past, she had read a lot of books at home. Not only did she read the family Morton's collection of books, her father had also brought her many books from Chaos School. Those books had accompanied her through all of her boring times, and allowed her to learn a lot of knowledge and broaden her horizons. She hadn't told her grandfather that she wanted to compete with Hill Buffett on a whim. Instead, she wanted to find an opportunity to use all of the things she had learned. As for whether she could beat Hill, that wasn't actually the most important thing to her. Perhaps I can go back and discuss this with Mr. Mars first. He knows the Chaos City market better than me. If it's feasible, then I'll come back and work with Mr. Meg, Gloria thought to herself. She wasn't in a hurry to find Meg. Instead, she looked at Amy, and thought back to all of the little clothes that she had worn. She nodded as she said, Amy has so many styles of clothes, and they're all very unique and adorable. If Mr. Meg is willing to design clothes for Landai, then perhaps he can lead a new trend in Chaos City. Apart from cooking, Mr. Mag has amazing abilities in many other areas as well. Gloria was full of praise for him from the bottom of her heart. He was gentle and refined, a super chef, a fashion designer. What a mysterious man. She really wanted to know what he couldn't do. I want an ice cream, blueberry flavored. I want a chocolate ice cream. Due to the fact that the ice cream was machine-made, Meg only needed to mix the ingredients, so there was no shortage of ice cream. Compared to the tofu pudding, the battle between the sweet and savory flavors was far less intense. Due to the fact that there were only 2 ice creams available, many people would choose to try both flavors at the same time. Different flavors of ice creams brought about different experiences, but they were all equally delicious. As such, everyone was looking forward to tasting the other 2 flavors as well. Meg took some time to ask the Crassus about the competition tomorrow, and it was similar to what Amy had said. The challengers were the junior disciples of the Magus Tower. Mr. Mac, you don't have to worry. With me here, no one can hurt little Amy. Besides, no one would dare to hurt my precious disciple. Crassus waved his hand at Meg. With your words, I'm not worried anymore. Meg nodded with a smile. He hesitated momentarily before asking, by the way, can I take a look at the competition tomorrow? You say you're not worried, but I'm actually not at all. All right, Mr. Mac, if you're worried, then you can come to the school with me tomorrow and see how little Amy crushes all of them. Crassus smiled in a resigned manner. Thank you, Mr. Mac. Meg was elated to hear this. He was worried about Amy, but he also wanted to see the Magus Tower disciples. With Crassus' approval, he should be able to enter Chaos School tomorrow. Thus, the restaurant's opening hours finally came to an end. Sally and Yarbemia left after cleaning up the restaurant. Meg turned over the sign on the door and prepared to take Amy and Ugly Duckling to bed. Father, Xiaomi still wants to eat another ice cream, okay? Amy was usually very sleepy at this time, but she was very energetic today. She pouted at Meg, and her pointy little ears twitched. Meow tilde Ugly Duckling's eyes also lit up, and it extended its 2 little white paws toward Meg as if to say, I want one too. Meg's heart almost melted at the sight of Amy's adorable expression, and he almost nodded. However, after thinking about it for a moment, he shook his head, and said, no, you can't. It's already night time, and you're about to go to bed. You can't have ice cream at this time. Otherwise, you'll get a stomachache. But I really want to eat ice cream. I just want one vanilla ice cream. I'm begging you, Father. Her big blue eyes were bright, and her pointy ears were drooping. It was as if she would burst into tears if Mag were to refuse her. She looked up at Mag with her big, bright blue eyes, and her pointy ears drooped as if she would burst into tears if Mag were to reject her. Meow tilde Ugly Duckling also latched onto Meg's apron with a pleading expression. Meg looked down at the 2 little guys, and he couldn't bring himself to refuse. After hesitating momentarily, he asked internally, System, if I give Amy ice cream now, will it negatively affect her body? According to the system's analysis, Amy's constitution is quite strong, so ice cream shouldn't cause any adverse effects under normal circumstances. However, she's already eaten 3 ice creams today, so the system suggests that she shouldn't eat too much ice cream. Otherwise, it'll be detrimental to her health, the system quickly replied. So you're saying that I can have another ice cream now? Meg asked again. There are risks associated with eating any food. According to incomplete statistics, there are no less than 1,000 people who die from eating jelly every year, and there are also many who die from drinking water. As such, the system can't guarantee that there won't be any side effects, the system replied in a serious manner. There's a chance that you'll be crushed to death by a pie falling from the sky. Meg rolled his eyes internally. Seeing as the system was telling him not to eat too much ice cream, then it shouldn't be a problem to have another ice cream. Looking at the pitiful expressions on the 2 little guys' faces, he really couldn't bring himself to refuse. He patted Amy's head and said, "All right, but you 2 can only eat 1 ice cream. 1 snowball each, and Amy can eat the eggshell." "Yay. Thank you, Father." Amy jumped up with elation, and her pointy little ears twitched with elation. Meow Tilda Ugly Duckling also meowed excitedly. After tasting ice cream the day before, it had also fallen in love with this type of cold and delicious food. Meg went into the kitchen to make a vanilla ice cream with only 1 snowball for Amy. He then placed the other snowball onto a small plate and placed it on the floor. The 2 little guys happily finished their ice cream before following Meg upstairs to wash up and go to bed. System, upgrade the restaurant. Chapter 453. Finally, you're here. Fortunately, I didn't give up. A BGM sounded in Meg's mind. It was the system's version, and it was full of resentment. System, next time you play this kind of 3D surround music in my mind, I won't buy anything. Meg frowned and expressed strong dissatisfaction with the system's omnidirectional 3D sound wave attack. Host, this is to express my inner excitement. Don't you humans hum when you're happy? How can you erase this freedom of the system at will? The system protested sternly. Then I won't upgrade it. Meg curled his lips. I think the host is right. This kind of behavior should be stopped. It can't be tolerated. The BGM suddenly stopped, and the system said with a flattering smile, "Now let's talk about upgrading the restaurant. The host's points are now enough to upgrade the restaurant to LV2. After upgrading the restaurant, a variety of permissions will be unlocked. At the same time, the restaurant will be transformed to a certain extent. Please confirm the upgrade." Meg looked at the restaurant upgrade agreement that appeared in his mind. He read it carefully from beginning to end. It was an ordinary transaction contract. There was nothing special about it, and it didn't state the permissions that would be upgraded after the upgrade, so he directly pressed the confirm button in the lower right corner with his mind. Ding. The host confirms the restaurant upgrade successful. Ding. 50,000 points successfully deducted. Ding. The restaurant is being upgraded. It will take 3 minutes. During this time, the host is not allowed to enter the restaurant on the 1st floor. The system's prompts sounded one after another, and some voices came from downstairs. By the way, system, can you change the room on the 2nd floor into a small children's playground? Meg asked in his mind. Anyway, this room was empty. If it was made into a children's playground, the 2 little guys could have another place to play. Sorry, host, this is not included in the upgrade package. The system refused, and then said sternly, also, please remember that the system is a serious gourmet system, not a builder. Please don't insult the system by transforming Le Tong Park. This is contempt and an insult to a noble gourmet system. Just tell me how much it will cost to transform it. Meg rolled his eyes and said directly, this. The system suddenly choked, and showed some hesitation. 1,000 gold coins. Meg bid. Deal. The system said without hesitation. Your body is quite honest. Meg curled his lips, then shook his head and said, you agree, but I refuse. It's too expensive. Host, the price can still be negotiated. The cost can be calculated according to the host's requirements. The price of the system's products is absolutely fair. Create a fun and interesting children's playground for the little princess in the limited space and accompany her to spend an interesting childhood. The system did not give up and continued. Show me the renderings first. Meg said straightforwardly. 1,000 gold coins was equivalent to 100,000 copper coins. Although the restaurant's current turnover was good, this was still a large sum of money. He couldn't spend it casually. Ding. The renderings of the indoor children's paradise have been transmitted. Please check them yourself. The system's voice immediately sounded. Meg looked at the list of renderings that appeared in his mind. The price started from 500 gold coins and gradually increased to 10,000 gold coins and even 100,000 gold coins. Meg opened them one by one. The one with 500 gold coins was similar to an ordinary modern indoor amusement park. It was decorated with cartoon wallpapers, a spring bed, a small swing, a wooden horse. All kinds of toys filled the whole room. It looked very childlike and there were a lot of them. It was just that they looked a little lacking in quality. It was like an amusement park where you could play for a day if you bought a ticket for $10. Scrolling down, the amusement park that cost 1,000 gold coins looked much more advanced, and there were many themes to choose from, such as Ocean World, Fantasy Purple Kingdom. Not only were there themes on the wallpaper, but the toys were also upgraded. In the corner, there was a small two-person merry-go-round, a cartoon dance machine, and a small electric wooden horse. It looked very high-tech. This feels good. Based on the size of this room, this level of amusement park is already the limit. If you put more large-scale facilities inside, it would be too much. Meg looked at the Fantasy Purple Kingdom and nodded with satisfaction. Then, he curiously continued to look at other amusement parks with higher prices. His expression gradually became strange. The ones with a starting price of 10,000 gold coins were basically the scale of an outdoor amusement park. All kinds of large-scale entertainment facilities were available. The amusement park with a price of 1 million gold coins was close to the scale of Disneyland. There were various theme venues, and it was not something that could be stuffed in a small room. According to the system, there were some high-tech venues among these venues, such as the Chuanjian Space Simulator, the Starsea Travel Hall, the Black Hole Experience Hall, the Magic War Hall. Even Meg, a big friend, was a little tempted. If I use 1 million gold coins to build an amusement park and then sell tickets to the public, can I make money? Meg looked at the blueprint and thought in his heart. However, he quickly shook his head and rejected the idea. 1 million gold coins was a huge sum of money. The restaurant's turnover for several years might not be able to reach this amount. The investment cost was too high, and he could not be sure if there would be children coming to play. More importantly, if this 1 million gold coins were used to buy physical strength points, Meg's strength might be restored to its peak. Compared to this kind of long-term investment, it was obviously more important to restore his strength. Of course, if he could pull in venture capital, this was a good idea. Anyway, he did not have to pay for it. System, can the price of this Fantasy Purple Kingdom be lower? Meg looked back and asked in his heart. This was obviously the most suitable reconstruction plan at present. Host, this is already the cost price. The system has strict requirements for the quality of the product. The system can guarantee that the real thing is absolutely identical to the picture. At this price, you will make a profit. What are you still hesitating for? The system replied seriously. 500 gold coins. Meg said without hesitation. A line of ellipses silently floated in the system's mind. Then, it roared, Host, how can you bargain like this? Don't all bargains start with a 50% cut? Meg touched his nose and said as a matter of fact. The system fell into silence. I only have so much money. If it's okay, I'll take it. If not, I'll take the two little guys out to play. The outside world is more exciting. Meg stood up and walked towards the door. The 3 minutes were almost up, and the restaurant's renovation was about to be completed. Host, please wait. Do you think you can add a little more? Chapter 454. 1 copper coin, no more, Meg said without turning his head. Deal. The system gritted its teeth. Then let's modify it. The corners of Meg's mouth curled up. Although 500 gold coins was not a small sum, he would not even blink an eye if it was used to build a theme park for Amy. Ding! 500 gold coins and 1 copper coin have been successfully deducted. Fantasy Purple Kingdom theme park modification begins. Time taken, 3 minutes. Please wait. Ding! Restaurant upgrade complete. Congratulations, host. The restaurant has been successfully upgraded to level 2. The following changes have been made to the restaurant's upgrade. 1. Upgrade the omniscient door. It can detect the various data of all who enter the restaurant, including but not limited to 3 measurements: gender, strength, physical condition, etc. 2. At the same time, complete the expansion of the open-air seating area, adding 16 open-air seats to the restaurant. 3. Upgrade the restaurant and install a high-quality stereo surround sound system. Host can purchase music from the system to enhance the restaurant's style. 4. Upgrade the restaurant's defense level to level 4, which can defend the restaurant against all physical and magical attacks below level 4. In addition to the hardware modification, the restaurant's upgrade also unlocked a series of privileges for host, including 1. The right to purchase kitchen utensils is completely unlocked. Host can purchase utensils according to the price set by the system. 2. The right to experiment and research dishes is unlocked. 3. The right to teach dishes that host has already learned, but the number of teaching is temporarily limited to 2 people. The system's voice sounded. Meg stopped in his tracks. After a while, he finally digested the information provided by the system. Fuck, system, you installed a stereo system, but sold CDS? Is there such a scam? Meg couldn't help but complain. Playing some melodious classical music during the meal could indeed soothe the mood and make the guests feel more relaxed and happy while eating. However, the system's idea was obviously not that simple. It was like giving a rice cooker but not giving the rice. It was simply too shameless to raise the price. Host, please pay attention to your words. Every classic piece of music is the culmination of a musician's painstaking efforts. After countless conceptions and recordings, how many musicians have worked so hard in the dark of night to finally produce a piece of recorded music? Don't tell me that the host shouldn't pay to support the original version of such music. The system said bitterly. I've always thought that supporting the original version is a matter of course. Those who shout about their love but do things like pirating are simply an insult to the word love. Meg asked with a serious expression, but system, if it's based on the download price of the original version, then I can accept it. Isn't NetEase Cloud free of charge for a month? How much is your monthly subscription? The system solemnly states that the download price is paid. Also, the system does not provide a monthly subscription service. Also, host, this is another world. How can you measure the value of a classic song according to the price on Earth? A classic song is priceless in this world. The system's voice was slightly agitated. Then, how much do you intend to sell it for? Mag asked. At least 10 gold coins per song, the system said after some hesitation. Didn't you say that it's priceless? Meg curled his lips and said with some disdain. Priceless is just an adjective used to describe an item's value. Look at those so-called priceless treasures. As long as they enter the bidding process, don't they all have a price? This priceless song is 10 gold coins per song, the system said without blushing at all. You spent $5 to download a song, and now you're selling it to me for $1,000? Do you think I'm stupid? Meg rolled his eyes and walked down the stairs. As he walked, he said, let's not talk about the song first. I'm more curious about the omniscient door. Also, putting aside the strength and physical condition, what the hell is with the 3 measurements and gender? Don't tell me there's such a thing as a crossdresser in this world. Host, please don't underestimate the danger of this world. When you see a girl and think she's very beautiful, it's very possible that she'll pull out something bigger than you. This kind of thing is very likely to happen. The omniscient door's ability to identify gender can easily prevent this kind of thing from happening. As for the 3 measurements, it's an additional reward. Of course, if the host doesn't want it, the system can turn off these 2 functions, the system replied. Meg imagined the scene and suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. He hurriedly waved his hands and said, "Although I don't know what the hell you're talking about is, since it has these two functions, I'll leave it. However, there's no need to show the 3 measurements under normal circumstances." "Okay," the system replied. Mag continued to make his way downstairs. According to what the system had told him, aside from the hardware modifications, it had also granted him some privileges. From today onward, he would be able to cook some dishes that weren't on the menu. However, with the abundance of dishes in the restaurant, Meg didn't have many thoughts of cooking new dishes for the time being. However, the unlocking of the privilege of teaching cooking was rather interesting. Previously, Yarbemia had expressed some curiosity towards cooking. Although she didn't say anything to him and intentionally avoided him when cooking, this girl wasn't good at hiding her feelings. "Perhaps I can teach Mia some simple dishes. For example, making ice cream doesn't require much skill. I can just let her do it. If she wants to learn other dishes, I can teach her slowly," Meg muttered to himself. He had already arrived downstairs. He turned on the lights and the restaurant was illuminated. The interior of the restaurant hadn't changed much. The sound system was embedded and hidden. As for the surround effect, Meg wasn't sure. A faint golden metal frame had appeared on the door frame of the restaurant. It was as thick as a thumb, and appeared to be some kind of decoration. However, an omniscient door system panel had appeared in Mag's mind, so this wasn't a simple decoration. Instead, it was the omniscient door that the system was referring to. Its effect was still to be tested. However, with this door that could detect one's strength, it would at least serve as a warning to Meg. He would also be able to understand the strength of the customers entering and leaving the restaurant. It wouldn't be easy to provoke people who shouldn't be provoked. When he opened the door and walked out, Meg's eyes immediately lit up. In the empty space outside the restaurant, there were 4 square tables and matching chairs. However, these tables and chairs weren't wooden like the ones in the restaurant. Instead, they were all made of metal. They were painted light brown and looked fresh and elegant. There was a small black and white lamp in each of the 4 corners. It was just enough to illuminate the area around the table. It didn't affect each other and looked very warm and pleasant. Perfect. Chapter 455. Host, please rate the upgrade as follows: 5 stars is very satisfactory, 4 stars is very satisfactory, 3 stars is average, 2 stars is not satisfactory, 1 star is extremely poor. The system prompted. 1 star, extremely poor. Meg replied without thinking. Host. This is a malicious negative review. You clearly said that it was perfect and that you were very satisfied with the upgrade. This system has the video as proof. The system's anxious and angry voice sounded. Yes, I did give a malicious negative review. If you are unhappy, why don't you hit me? Meg said with a smile. Host, your actions are a serious violation of personal integrity. I am going to downgrade your elephant food. I am going to lower your credit rating and reduce your credit limit. I also want. The system said angrily. Do you want to change the negative review? Meg was unmoved and continued to smile. The system's words came to an abrupt halt and it said hesitantly, Host, this matter is still negotiable. But will you suddenly be so kind? 2 copper coins and I will change it to a good review. Meg said directly. Host, you are not being kind. I only asked you to add 1 copper coin and the deal was done. Now you want to use 2 copper coins to change the negative review. The system said angrily. If I only ask for 1 copper coin, wouldn't I be as stupid as you? I don't do business at a loss. 1 copper coin is at least a profit. Meg curled his lips and said impatiently, Are you going to give it to me or not? If not, I will increase the price. Deal. The system gritted its teeth. Ding. 2 copper coins returned to the host's account. Please check. Meg listened to the notification in his mind and a satisfied smile appeared on his face. He changed the review again. He took another look at the outdoor seats outside. There were a few umbrellas at the side that could be used to block the sun. They could be used when it was drizzling. Mag turned around and walked into the restaurant leisurely, preparing to go upstairs to wash up and sleep. Ding. Restaurant upgrade successful. Host's review has been completed. Additional mission reward, roast beef kebab recipe X1, beer brewing method X1, please accept. At this moment, the system's voice suddenly sounded. Meg stopped in his tracks and said in disbelief, "System, what did you just say? Beef kebabs and beer?" Yes, in view of the fact that the host has successfully upgraded the restaurant to LVL2 within a month and a half, the system hereby rewards the host with a recipe for roast beef skewers and a recipe for brewing beer. I hope the host can continue to work hard and improve his cooking skills. At the same time, upgrade the restaurant as soon as possible. More generous rewards await you. The system's impassioned voice sounded. All right, I'll continue to work hard. Meg looked at the 2 glittering experience bags in his mind and said without thinking. Eating skewers with beer, such an ideal supper, he didn't expect it to arrive so soon. The system didn't just give him a pleasant surprise, it gave him a fright. Since the beef kebabs are here, the mutton kebabs shouldn't be too far away, right? It would be perfect if I could get a barbecue skewer and a large glass of cold beer, Meg thought to himself, and the smile on his face blossomed. After going upstairs to his room, Meg was thinking about whether he should learn how to make beef kebabs or beer tonight when Amy, who was lying on the small bed, groaned in discomfort. Meg hurriedly turned on the light and quickly walked to the bedside. Amy, who was lying on the bed, was a little pale. Her eyebrows were tightly knitted, and her little hand was still covering her lower abdomen. She seemed to be in pain. "Amy, what's wrong?" Meg suddenly panicked and hurriedly carried Amy up. Her small body was a little cold in his arms, and this made him even more flustered. This kind of situation had never happened before. "Da. Father, my stomach hurts." Amy weakly opened her eyes and looked at Meg, then closed her eyes again and held her stomach in discomfort. Not good. It seems that the ice cream has upset her stomach. But what should I do now? There's no hospital nearby. Meg was a little flustered. At the same time, he was also blaming himself. He shouldn't have let children eat ice cream in the middle of the night. He was really not a good father. Although his life as a stay-at-home dad had been quite smooth recently, it was mainly because Amy had always been very obedient and had never caught a cold. In the end, he was still a newbie stay-at-home dad who had only taken care of a child for a little over a month. Now that something like this had happened, he was at a loss for what to do. Meow, meow. Tilda ugly duckling had woken up at some point. It rubbed its head against Amy's little hand and looked at her worriedly. "I don't know where Sally lives. It's not very realistic to go and find her now." "Oh, right, 11:11. Meg's eyes lit up. He took a small blanket and wrapped Amy in it, then quickly carried her downstairs. 11:11's nature magic also had super strong healing abilities. Its effect should not be inferior to Sally's life magic. Furthermore, she was living in Julian's magic potion shop right next door. "Miss 11:11. Miss 11:11. Open the door." Meg carried Amy with one hand and banged on the door of the magic potion shop hard. He couldn't care less about whether he would disturb the residents in the middle of the night. "Mr. Mac." The door of the magic potion shop creaked open. 11:11 rubbed her sleepy eyes and looked at Meg, who was standing at the door, puzzled. The tall and big Lulu stood behind 11:11 and looked at Meg with a grin. "Miss 11:11, 11:11's stomach hurts. Can you use magic to heal her? She looks very uncomfortable," Meg said hurriedly with a hint of urgency in his voice. "Little Amy, come in quickly." 11:11 woke up immediately. She took a look at Amy, who was wrapped up tightly in Meg's arms, and hurriedly opened the door fully and walked in quickly. Lulu also quickly moved aside. "Put little Amy on the counter. Did she eat anything tonight?" 11:11 pointed a finger, and the oil lamp in the corner lit up. The dim yellow light illuminated the magic potion shop as she asked Mag, "What's the matter?" "She had half an ice cream before going to bed. I shouldn't have given it to her. She must have eaten something cold," Mag said with a hint of self-reproach as he gently placed her on the counter and placed a small blanket under her. "A child's body is not as strong as an adult's. Mr. Mac, you have to be careful next time," 11:11 said with a rare serious expression. Then she put her hands on Amy's forehead and lower abdomen for a while and let out a sigh of relief. Don't worry. It's not a big problem. Stand aside a little. Meg hurriedly stood aside and looked at 1111 nervously. Chapter 456. The green light seemed to have been absorbed by Amy. Her furrowed brows slowly relaxed, and the pained expression on her face gradually eased. Color returned to her cheeks, and her breathing gradually calmed down, as if she had already fallen asleep. All right, you just need to go back and have a good night's rest. 1111 slowly put down her hand, and Amy gently lay back down on the little blanket. She had already fallen asleep. Thank you, Meg said gratefully. He heaved a sigh of relief at the sight of the sleeping Amy. You're welcome. It's a little cold outside, so I've wrapped the blanket around you. Take little Amy back to sleep first. Don't give her anything cold before she goes to bed in the future, 1111 said with a smile. All right, I won't do that again. Meg nodded. With this lesson in mind, he didn't dare to give Amy ice cream at night again. Furthermore, he was going to strictly control the amount of ice cream Amy ate in the future. He definitely wouldn't allow her to eat more than 2 ice creams a day. He carefully carried Amy to the entrance of the restaurant, and he heard a rustling sound coming from inside. It sounded as if something was scratching at the door. As soon as he opened the door, Ugly Duckling, which was holding onto the door with its 2 front paws, immediately rolled out. It rolled on the spot twice before standing up. It looked up at Amy in Meg's arms with a confused expression, and began to meow with concern. Amy, you're fine now. You should go back to sleep. Your stomach is fine. Looks like eating really is a talent of orange cats. Meg crouched down with a smile, and picked up Ugly Duckling before walking into the restaurant. Ugly Duckling seemed to have understood Meg's words, and it immediately settled down. It rubbed its little head against Amy's leg, and closed its eyes, falling asleep immediately. After putting the 2 little ones back on the bed and tucking them in, Meg crouched beside the bed for over an hour. After seeing that Amy didn't show any other reaction, he went to wash up and lay down on the bed. Meg was worried that he wouldn't be able to react in time if something happened to Amy in the test field for the God of Cookery, so he didn't touch the 2 experience bags in his mind again. He didn't mind playing for a day. The next morning, Meg woke up early as usual. He walked to the bedside and looked at Amy, who was still sleeping soundly. He gently leaned over and kissed the hair on her forehead. The little girl must have been tired yesterday, so he decided to let her have a good night's sleep today. As for the class, he would talk about it after she woke up. In any case, Crassus did not really care about the challenge of the Magus Tower. As for whether or not Amy would participate in the battle today, Meg would have to wait until she woke up to see how she was doing. If she was not in a good condition, he would definitely not let her compete with others. As expected, being a qualified father is not an easy task. The revolution has yet to succeed. Comrades, you still have to work hard. Meg sighed in his heart and turned to go downstairs to prepare the ingredients. Time flew by quickly. Meg went upstairs to check on Amy twice, but she was still asleep. Even Ugly Duckling was sleeping soundly beside Amy. Wow, why are there suddenly a few more tables outside Amy's? And they're all made of metal, but they look so refreshing. This is the first open-air restaurant in the Aiden Square that has been recognized by the City Lord's Castle. Even though it's only a part of the restaurant, Mr. Mac really is something to be able to obtain a business license from the City Lord's Castle. I know, right? I heard that the City Lord's Castle booked the entire restaurant in Amy's a few days ago for a meeting between the representatives of the dragon race and the demon race. This kind of thing has only ever happened in the best restaurants in the Aiden Square before. The new tables and chairs outside the restaurant also attracted the attention of many customers in the line. Some customers even went to try them out. There had never been a restaurant in the Aiden Square that had tables and chairs placed directly in the square, so it was quite a novelty. Mr. Mac, are the tables and chairs outside suitable for seating? You can also order food outside later, right? Sargeras asked with a bashful smile as he stood in the line with the Burning Legion. He looked at Meg, who had just opened the door. Of course you can. The restaurant installed the open-air seats last night. In the future, Customers who are prone to violent reactions after eating delicious food can eat outside. You can eat to your heart's content, and you won't easily cause harm to other customers. Also, the tables and chairs are made of special materials, so you don't have to worry about burning them. Just sit and eat. Meg nodded with a smile. Even though the restaurant wasn't divided into sections, for safety reasons, Meg still suggested that some special customers sit outside in the open-air seats. Hee, Mr. Mac is so considerate. We all have seats now, Mond said with a bashful smile. The members of the Burning Legion also smiled. Even though they didn't feel uncomfortable eating Ruggiamos at the entrance of the restaurant, they were more than happy to have a seat where they could sit down and enjoy the delicious food. Boss, can you give me 2 more Ruggiamos today? I feel like I can make a breakthrough with the power of 7 more Ruggiamos, Kazak said to Sajaras expectantly. Of course, no problem. Looks like you're going to be the second one to make a breakthrough after Keel. The holy Ruggiamo is indeed a holy item for us lava demons. Sajaras nodded with a smile. He also looked a little excited. Sajaras looked at the demons and raised his fist. As long as we can make the whole village eat Ruggiamos, there will be hope for us lava demons to rise again. So, let's work hard, brothers. For the Ruggiamo. All the demons answered in unison. Demons brainwashed by Ruggiamo? They're hopeless. Meg raised his eyebrows. He felt a little amused and touched. He smiled and welcomed the customers in. Julian. Gender, male. Ability, 10th tier ice magic caster. Physical condition, severe aging, with malignant rheumatoid arthritis and ankylosing spondylitis, alga-libby. Gender, female. Ability, 1st tier knight. Physical condition, 1 month pregnant. As the customers entered the door, the system panel in Mag's mind began to pop up with messages. This panel was under Mag's control, and he could close it at any time. He could also move it to a corner so that he could glance at it whenever he wanted. It didn't affect his work, and he didn't mind it being in the way. I didn't think Julian's physical condition would be so bad. I hope the restaurant's dishes can improve his condition. Meg looked at Julian. These illnesses are all very torturous. No wonder his back is hunched. It must be very painful. But this omniscient door is really something. Could it be that it has the effect of an ultrasound? It can even detect 1 month pregnant. Meg looked at the female knight who sat down and ordered. She probably doesn't even know that she's a month pregnant. At the gate of Chaos School, the horse-drawn carriages of the Magus Tower and the Advanced Imperial Academy were lined up in a row. The honor of our Magus Tower is at stake in this competition. Defeat is not an option. Abbott stood at the gate of the academy and looked at the young men lined up in front of the horse-drawn carriages with a serious expression. Yes. All of the young men replied in unison. Their eyes were filled with battle intent. Chapter 457. The main hall of Chaos School was already filled with students. The students from the elementary school and the Haohaiyuan elementary school were seated below the stage according to their age and class, and the teachers of each class were keeping them in order. The young magic casters from the Magus Tower were led by Hank, and they were standing on the right side of the stage. They wore dark blue robes with a golden Magus Tower embroidered on the chest, and all of them wore arrogant expressions as they looked at the students from the Magic Academy with provocative expressions. The students from the Advanced Imperial Academy wore blue and white uniforms, and they stood half a step behind the Magus Tower students, and all of them wore arrogant expressions. On the Chaos School side, the students from the Magic Academy wore white robes with the Chaos School emblem embroidered on the chest. The students from the other academies who were going to be battling the Advanced Imperial Academy students wore normal school uniforms, and they stood in the same row as the students from the Magic Academy. Below the stage, the children from the elementary school were all very excited. All of them were looking up at the stage and chatting away incessantly. According to the teachers, they were going to be able to see the upper-grade students battling the magic casters from the faraway Roth Empire, and this was a spectacle that could only be seen once a year. The students from the Haohaiyuan elementary school were slightly older, but they didn't appear to be any calmer. The competition between the Magus Tower and the Advanced Imperial Academy had been going on for over 20 years, and it was held almost every year. As such, to them, this was not just a lively show, it was also a battle for the glory of Chaos School. Chaos School had lost more than they had won in the past, and they had even lost 4 years in a row. Not only had they lost to the Magus Tower, but they had also lost to the Advanced Imperial Academy. As such, today's match was extremely important. If they were to lose again this year, then Chaos School would have lost 5 consecutive matches. Such a humiliation had never been seen before in the history of Chaos School. Even their teachers had said that if they were to lose 5 consecutive matches, then the Magus Tower and the Advanced Imperial Academy probably wouldn't even bother to challenge Chaos School next year. In that case, Chaos School wouldn't even have a chance to prove itself. As such, Chaos School had to win this match. However, when they thought about the power of the upperclassmen from the Magic Academy this year, everyone was rather dejected. Although there were a few seniors who were already third-grade magicians, there would always be at least one fourth-grade magician among the challengers of the Magus Tower. The difference of 1 grade was the difference between an intermediate magician and a novice magician. Almost no one could surpass this gap. The teachers and leaders of Chaos School sat in the front row, while Novan sat in the center. Abbott sat to his left, and the official from the Roth Empire sat beside Abbott. Crassus didn't choose to sit in the first row. Instead, he sat in the corner of the second row. He was looking around as if he was looking for someone. Arthur, who was sitting behind Crassus, asked softly, "Sir, are you worried that Miss Amy won't make it in time? Do you need me to look for it?" "I'm not worried about that. I just haven't had breakfast yet, so I'm a little hungry. I'm wondering when Mr. Mac will remember to bring me breakfast." Crassus rubbed his stomach and waved a hand nonchalantly as he said, "As for little Amy, don't the main characters always appear last?" Back then, in order to flex during the Roth Empire's Magic Caster competition, I intentionally delayed the competition until Julian defeated all of his opponents and was about to receive the trophy. I easily defeated him, and won the championship. That became a legend in the Magic Caster world for a very long time. But I heard that there was no winner in that match, right? Arthur asked in a doubtful voice. What does that have to do with anything? In any case, I made all of the magic casters in the Roth Empire remember me. That championship is actually not important. What's important is that I proved one thing: all of the people here are trash. I don't need to fight with them, but they're no longer worthy of fighting with me. Crassus shrugged with a smile. "Sir, you're the most powerful melee magic caster on the continent," Arthur said with a hint of awe and veneration in his eyes. "If only I could get rid of the word melee someday, then I wouldn't have lived my life in vain. However, I probably won't be able to do that. If Amy can do it, then that'll be a lot more flexing." Crassus sighed with emotion. Aside from the two of them, there were still many powerful magic casters on the Norland continent. There was the Elven Queen, who hadn't appeared in battle for 100 years, the old dragon beneath the Dragon Island, the old witch in the Boundless Sea Realm, the old bastard in the Rodu Royal Palace. He didn't even know how powerful Irina was right now. However, with the assistance of the Tree of Life, she was most likely already on par with those old monsters. "Master Crassus, I congratulate you on accepting a disciple on behalf of the Magus Tower. Where is your beloved disciple now? Would it be possible for me to meet this young prodigy who was fortunate enough to be accepted as a disciple by the God of Fire?" The match hadn't commenced yet, and Abbott had also made his way over to Crassus with a smile. However, he was looking around, and he didn't see any half-elf girls among the Chaos School team. "Abbott, I didn't think that you'd be leading the team this time. However, it's my fortune to be able to accept a prodigy like Amy as a disciple." Crassus glanced at Abbott with a hint of mockery in his eyes, and said, "There's no need to look for her. My dear disciple isn't here today. Did those old bastards tell you to arrange for those little guys on the stage to fight my dear disciple? Do they want to humiliate an old bastard like me who came all the way from the Magus Tower to Chaos City?" Abbott's smile stiffened upon hearing this, and an awkward look appeared on his face. As expected, Crassus only appeared to be an easygoing man. However, he was representing the Magus Tower, so he could only force a smile onto his face as he said, All of the Magus Tower seniors are very happy to hear that Master Crassus has accepted a disciple, so they all believe that the prodigy that Master Crassus has chosen must be extraordinary. The juniors of the Magus Tower don't come to Chaos City often, so they'll definitely benefit immensely if they can take this opportunity to spar with your disciple. How can a bunch of youths who have studied magic for over 10 years benefit immensely from sparring with a 4-year-old little girl who has only studied magic for a month? Is it because I'm old that my ears are failing me, or is it because I don't even care about my face anymore? Crassus asked with a hint of surprise in his eyes. Abbott blushed, and didn't know how to respond. Chapter 458. I certainly hope so. Abbott took a meaningful glance at Crassus, but he couldn't tell what he was thinking. However, he still smiled, and said, "The Magus Tower will always be the most powerful, right, Master Crassus?" "Is that so? I've never thought that, Abbott. You're getting ahead of yourself." Crassus shook his head as he looked at Abbott. "But you and Master Julian were the ones who founded the Magus Tower. During the Magic Caster Convention, you and Master Julian won the championship at the same time. He chose to leave Rodu, while you founded the Magus Tower. It took several decades of development for the Magus Tower to reach its current state. Don't you think he's the most powerful?" Abbott turned to Crassus with a perplexed expression. "This Magus Tower is no longer the Magus Tower of the past. It's grown into something that I don't like. It's like your wife giving birth to a son, but he's growing up to look more and more like your neighbor. Do you still think he's your son? So don't say things like that to me in the future. The Magus Tower now has nothing to do with me. I'm getting old, but I still have my pride." Crassus looked at Abbott with a serious expression. "I hope your disciple can perform well." Abbott opened his mouth to say something, but in the end, he nodded before turning to depart. She was a very naive little girl back then. She was the last one to enter the Magus Tower. She was a little weak, but she wasn't a bad person. Crassus shook his head as he continued to look toward the entrance. "Where's Amy? Is Amy going to compete against the magic casters from the Magus Tower today?" Daphne sat in her chair, trying her best to scan the crowd on the stage again. However, to her disappointment, Amy was still nowhere to be seen. "I don't think she has the right to participate in the competition yet. After all of the people on stage are seniors from the Chaos School, and they're all very powerful. She's only been studying magic for a month, so how could she represent Chaos School?" Ignatsu, who was sitting next to her, said as he scanned the crowd. "Of course not. Amy is super strong. As long as she participates, she'll definitely be able to defeat all of them," Daphne said confidently. "But Parker is really something. He actually represented the school in the math competition for the lower grades. But I feel that if Amy were to participate in this competition, she would be even better, right?" Ignatsu said again. "Little Amy won't be participating in the competition today, right? But why haven't I seen her yet?" Luna finally managed to get the children to sit down obediently. She was curious. She did not see anyone on the stage, and there was no one beside Crassus. So, where was she now? On the stage, the young magic casters of the Magus Tower were also sizing up their opponents with relaxed and arrogant expressions. "Is the disciple of Lord Crassus on stage? I heard that she's a half-elf girl, but there aren't any half-elves among those people, right?" George asked in a perplexed manner. "Looks like that little brat is scared. She doesn't dare to accept the challenge from the Magus Tower. A half-elf brat like her doesn't have the right to stand here and compete with us. She's going to become a laughingstock if word gets out." Hank pursed his lips as he looked at the students of the Magus Tower. He made no attempt to hide his disdain and mockery as he said, "Just like these bunch of idiots. If they could learn magic in school, then what would be the point of our Magus Tower?" Hank didn't intentionally lower his voice, so many of the students of the Magus Academy heard what he said. Their expressions immediately became enraged as they glared at Hank with hostility in their eyes. If it weren't for the fact that the principal, teachers, and underclassmen were all sitting below the stage, they would definitely challenge this arrogant bastard to a duel. The atmosphere on the stage immediately became tense. Both sides glared at each other with scorching battle intent burning in their eyes. Magic Academy, go for it. Chaos School. Victory for Chaos School. The confrontation on the stage also triggered a reaction from the students below the stage. Someone let loose a loud cry, and the entire venue was instantly filled with cheers. Their voices were so loud that it was as if they were going to blow the roof off the entire venue. We have to win this time. Let's fight for the glory of Chaos School. Claus clenched his fists as he waved them through the air. As the most powerful being from Chaos School, he was close to a 4th-tier magic caster, and the captain of the battle team, so he could feel the heavy responsibility on his shoulders. Let's fight for glory. All of the members of the Magus Academy also waved their hands in unison. Looking at their opponents from the Magus Tower, all of the worry in their hearts had been completely erased. Hearing the cheers from the entire venue, all of their blood was boiling, and they only had one thought in their minds, which was to beat the crap out of Chaos School. In that instant, their home field advantage was on full display. In contrast, all of the Magus Tower's young magic casters wore rather strained expressions. The deafening cheers from their opponents were giving them immense pressure. The oldest among them, Hank, was only 16 years old, while the youngest, George, was only 12 years old. Furthermore, this was the first time that many of them had stood in front of so many people, so they were all quite flustered. Don't worry, we're far more powerful than them. If magic casters can only rely on loud cheers, then what's the point of having prodigies? Hank chuckled coldly as he turned to Claus. He raised his right hand to his neck, and made a slicing motion with his right hand. All of the Magus Tower's young magic casters looked at Hank, and their hearts gradually calmed down. Hank was a 4th-tier magic caster, and the only intermediate magic caster present. With him here, they were going to win this match. Youthful vigor and unity, those things are far more important than victory. A smile appeared on Novan's face as he heard the cheers from the audience. He turned to the head of the school, and said, "Let's begin." Grinton nodded, and loudly announced, "Silence. The match between the Chaos School and the Magus Tower officially begins. The matches between the Advanced Imperial Academy and the Chaos School will be held in other arenas at the same time." The sound transmitter amplified his voice and transmitted it to everyone's ears. It even had a surround effect. The hall gradually fell silent, and all of the students from the Advanced Imperial Academy and the other academies left the stage. They were led to different arenas by the teachers, and only the young magic casters from the Magus Tower and the Magic Academy remained on the stage. Both sides were wearing Magus robes, one white, and the other blue, and they stood facing off against each other. Next up, I'll be announcing the rules for this match. In this match, we'll be abandoning the previous system of drawing lots. Instead, we'll be changing it to a voluntary match between two teams. The loser will have to leave the stage, while the winner can choose to remain on the stage and accept challenges from the opposing magic casters. They can also take a break from the stage until one team is completely defeated. Grinton announced in a loud voice. "But what about our other team member?" one of the magic casters asked. There were only 14 students from the Magic Academy, while the Magus Tower had 15. Chapter 459. I slept so well, Father. Are the guests not here yet? Amy came downstairs with Ugly Duckling in her arms, and looked at Meg, who was busy in the kitchen. Amy was still wearing her adorable teddy bear pajamas and a pair of slippers with little butterflies embroidered on them. Sally and Yarbemia were chatting in the dining room, and there were no guests at all. No, Xiao Mi slept a little longer today, so the customers have already finished eating and left. Meg turned to Amy with a smile. Her complexion had already returned to normal, and he was very relieved to see her. Huh! Amy's mouth immediately gaped open, and she hurriedly said, "But Teacher Crassus, I'm going to beat up some bad guys today. If I'm late, won't the bad guys run away?" "Don't worry, the bad guys are right there, and they won't be able to run away. I made some delicious tofu pudding and Yangju fried rice for Amy this morning. Let's go to the school after that." Meg smiled as he made his way out of the kitchen with a plate of Yangju fried rice and a plate of tofu pudding. "It smells so good." Amy also thinks that I have to eat my fill to have the strength to beat the bad guys. Amy's eyes immediately lit up, and she skipped along with Mag. Her pointy little ears were trembling slightly, and she appeared to be very happy. Even Ugly Duckling in her arms was squeaking excitedly, and she was no longer in a hurry. Hank's words made the entire venue fall silent for a moment. Then, as if a pebble had been tossed into a calm lake, a massive uproar instantly ensued. What an arrogant bastard! How dare he look down on our chaos school? Seniors, you have to teach him a lesson. All of the students below the stage were extremely enraged, and they wanted nothing more than to fight him. On the stage, all of the students from the chaos school wore dark expressions. They didn't think that they would be insulted and provoked like this before the competition had even begun. Even the teachers and school leaders sitting in the front row wore dark expressions on their faces. Chaos School had already lost 4 times in a row, and now, they were being humiliated by a young man on stage. If it weren't for the fact that the principal didn't say anything, they would have already had an argument with Abbott. Principal Novan, the children might be a little arrogant, so I hope you don't mind. Abbott was a little apologetic, but the smile on his face was a little smug and proud. Interesting. Novan merely smiled, and didn't express any displeasure. Quiet. Glinton took a glance at Novan, and repressed the fury in his heart. After the commotion died down, he said in a serious voice, "Let the magic competition begin. The competition will be held on the main stage, and Vice Principal Carpers will be the main referee for today's competition. According to the rules of the competition, safety is paramount, and malicious harm is strictly prohibited. Otherwise, the competition will be cancelled, and there will be corresponding consequences." Glinton's stern gaze swept over all of the young magic casters from the Magus Tower, and his gaze lingered on Hank for a while with a hint of warning in his eyes. Hank pursed his lips with a nonchalant expression, but cold sweat had appeared on his forehead. This fatso didn't appear to be a powerful figure, but for some reason, he was struck by a sense of unease, as if he were being targeted by a venomous snake. A white-haired magic caster slowly made his way onto the stage. He was tall and thin with a long face, and there were many fine wrinkles at the corners of his eyes, giving him a very serious appearance. He raised a hand, and a series of beams of light lit up on the stage. A circular golden arena with a diameter of around 10 meters rose up from the empty main stage, and a light barrier rose up around it to form a spherical competition stage. Golden light swirled over the transparent light barrier, creating a spectacular sight to behold. Wow! All of the students from the primary school below the stage let loose cries of surprise. Most of them had never come into contact with magic before, and they didn't even know what magic was. However, they were all struck by how cool it was to see a shimmering golden ball of light appear, and at the same time, they were all very much looking forward to the upcoming battle. A 9th-tier magic caster. Hank looked at the white-haired magic caster with a hint of awe and veneration in his eyes. He could sense from the magic fluctuations that this magic caster was very powerful, and he was most likely very close to his master in terms of power. He didn't think that there would be such a powerful magic caster in Chaos School, and he was only the vice principal. Could it be that the principal was a 10th-tier great magic caster? Children, the rules for today's match are very simple. You're going to fight to the end, and the team with the last person standing will be the victor. As for the order of battle and the number of arenas, that will be decided by the 2 captains. This is a battle of power, but it's also a battle of strategy. Vice Principal Carpers looked at everyone with a serious expression, and said, "However, there are a few rules that I have to reiterate here. Malicious harm is strictly prohibited. If an extremely dangerous situation arises, the referees will step in to protect the contestants before making the final judgment. Secondly, the use of one-time consumable magic items is strictly prohibited. Regardless of whether it's an offensive or defensive item, once used, the match will be deemed to have lost." The 2 teachers from the Chaos School stood on either side of the stage in order to prevent unforeseen circumstances from occurring during the match. Yes. The members of both teams replied in unison before standing on either side of the ball of light with hostility in their eyes. Carpers nodded before extending a hand, and said, "Next, let the first match begin. Captains, please arrange for your team members to enter the stage." George, you'll take the first 7 matches, I'll take care of the last 8. Hank patted George on the shoulder with a cold smile on his face, and said, show them what it's like to be dominated by the Magus Tower. All right. George nodded before striding into the ball of light first. All of the other Magus Tower members glanced at one another before opening their mouths. They were all rather indignant, but none of them dared to say anything in the end. Neil, you'll go first. George is a 3rd-tier wind magic caster who specializes in wind magic. You're an earth magic caster who specializes in defense, so you'll be able to counter him. Even if you can't beat him, you'll be able to exhaust his energy as much as possible to give your teammates an advantage, Klaus instructed. Don't worry, Captain, that little brat's wind magic won't be able to break through my guardian armor. I'll toss him out of the stage like a chicken, Neil said with a bashful smile before striding into the ball of light. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.